Grace and peace, everybody. We're back. You saw the thumbnail. You saw the title. You know what we're about to do. We got into our Thankful Thursday. We got some fun, easy on the mind Charlie Kirk debates that we're going to look at today. So thank you so much to everybody who's hopped into the best live chat on the internet. See lots of good faces and names popping up on the screen. So thank you so much as always. I appreciate you for coming in, hopping in. Drop your like number, all that kind of good stuff. Say what's up to you people. We missed you today. We missed you. Hopefully it's getting warm where you are. I see a lot of people discussing the winter is on its way out. Spring is here. I mean, it's warm here in Georgia, but I still sometimes I feel like it's still any day now. We can still get a snowstorm here or something crazy. Shout out for sure. What we got here with the good people. Hello, peeps. What is going on? Thank you so much. Giselle, thank you so much for stopping by. Lori says this. Hello. All right. A lot of good folks. I've seen a lot of good people may not have hollered at you, but thank you so much to each of y'all for hopping in with us on today. Oh, we got. And there were quite a few people in the comments today that had things to say. I invited them. I said, hey, why don't y'all follow on through? Come on by the live chat today. If you follow on through, I would love to talk with you. We'll see what happens. I put it out there to some people, but I don't think it's going to happen. And otherwise, if not, we're good to go. We'll just enjoy ourselves. We're going to unpack a couple of these Charlie Kirk discussions and debates and see what you all think about it. So let's get ready to do just that. Indeed, just that. I think most of these today are college students. I think I got one that's not on the college campus. I don't remember exactly. All right, let's get this going. Here we go. Bada boom. Where is it? There we go. Yep, let's go. Everybody, thank you so much. Let's get ready to pop at it. Oh. Uh-oh, you're already going. You're already going here. Green hearts in the chat when you can hear. Let's go.
So let me ask you a question. So in the CRT literature, what do they think of white people or whiteness?
Who would you like me to quote?
Kimberly Crenshaw.
I haven't read Kimberly Crenshaw.
She says that whiteness is a cancer or a toxin on our society.
The concept of whiteness, the racial concept of whiteness.
Okay, so what is whiteness?
What is whiteness?
Yeah, define it.
As Kimberly Crenshaw would probably say, the sort of construction of privilege that comes with being white in this country.
Right. So what privilege do you and I as white people have that black people don't have?
Yeah, great question. On applications that are blindly judged, white sounding names are often given the job more, they're paid more.
Not true. In fact, it's the opposite. There's black privilege right now. It's called affirmative action, where underqualified blacks are taking Asians and white people's places in universities across the country. True or false?
Sure, true.
Okay, so yeah, there's black privilege, not white privilege in this country.
I actually don't think affirmative action is how we address education inequality.
Okay, well, that affirmative action is still largely supported by the CRT regime. But let's get back to CRT, to the essence of it.
Sure.
CRT believes in one manifestation of its ideology is black-only dormitories. So white people are not allowed. Do you believe in black-only dormitories?
No, and I don't have to agree with every aspect of an ideology to argue for it.
So then what part of CRT do you like? Because they call whiteness a toxin, black-only dormitories. And if you want to talk about like ideological or intellectual sloppiness, the 1619 Project was...
I think it's very sloppy.
Okay, we agree. Nicole Hannah-Jones.
I think it's over.
The idea, the funny thing is, he's given her 3 examples, and she quickly agrees that these things are wrong, that these things are bad. Man, what are you doing then? Why are you arguing for something? Again, if you don't believe in it or don't agree with it, why are you arguing for it? It makes no sense. But let's finish up.
Overstated, and I think some of the parts are inaccurate.
Okay, good.
The parts of CRT that I think are most relevant and, very factually, you can,
we don't know.
What am I trying to say? There's a lot of evidence for them, is the fact that previous inequalities, such as the institution of slavery, such as our treatment of Native Americans, do in fact affect those populations today. And you were saying before, in inner cities, there's a lot more crime, and a lot of that is because of redlining and other practices that come directly from the mistreatment of minorities previously in this country.
So I want to make sure I understand. So black people make up 13% of the American population.
Oh, 1350, my favorite.
Yes, exactly. Why do they commit 55% of all the murders?
Super great question. it's basically a very complex intersection of race and economic status. It's pretty well known that minority people tend to be in a lower economic status because of discrimination.
So then why don't poor Asians commit a lot of murders?
Also a great question. Asian people weren't originally brought to America on purpose like Black people, and they weren't already present here like natives.
Wait,
yeah, you already know where she's going. We've done a couple of these. So you already know where she's going. She's saying that every Black person is a former slave or descendant of a slave, which is some crazy work. That is some absolute insanity right there. But let her tease it out. Let's see how she teases it out.
So then why don't poor Asians commit a lot of murders?
Also a great question. Asian people weren't originally brought to America on purpose like Black people, and they weren't already present here like natives.
Wait, so Blacks murder because they were brought here 250 years ago?
No, I would like to finish.
Okay, just answer. It's very simple.
I am answering.
No, I know, but you're not really.
I am. Asian Americans predominantly immigrate here for work reasons. They come from already wealthy countries. They're already wealthy when they get here. Crime is committed primarily by poor people.
First of all, that's not true.
Wait, it's funny. I didn't realize it. All the Asian children standing around her. That is hilarious, man. Yo, this thing. I would not want to do that. Like this. Let me back up just a little smidgen. Okay, I didn't see that. I say at least 4 in this picture alone. 5. I say 5 Asian, or looks like they might be Asian descendants right here alone. And how many more are there? That is some crazy work.
They get here. Crime is committed primarily by poor people.
First of all, that's not true. Talk to anybody from who's Vietnamese? Anybody? Did your family come here wealthy?
No.
Yes and
no. Not wealthy,
okay.
but not.
Yes
I'm not
or
saying
no?
they come here. Okay.
The average Vietnamese does not come here wealthy.
I'm not. Okay. I perhaps misspoke. Not wealthy, but a lot of the, you complain about it all the time. A lot of the immigration from countries that border us, right? It's sort of desperate people who are of a lower economic status, right? And they're coming here for a better life.
So 2 things. Number 1, there's been more Blacks that have legally immigrated to this country in the last 30 years than were ever brought as slaves. That's number 1.
Thanks.
Number 2, you still haven't answered the question.
I'm trying to.
Why?
It's a complicated answer.
Black people are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders. Why?
Because Black people tend to be in lower economic statuses because of
Okay, no, this
CRT,
is fine. This is great.
Basically,
so you think that poverty equals crime?
I think that it's highly correlated, and there's a lot of studies.
This is where
on
we
that.
disagree. What an insult to the working poor of this country.
So why do you think Black people commit more crimes?
Okay, wait. I really wish she'd allowed Charlie to finish up. The idea that just because you are of a lower socioeconomic, you're going to commit a crime, and good gracious alive, we're talking about the crime of murder, is that's some crazy work right there. It is some crazy work. I'm gonna guarantee you that this young lady right here in this white sweater, just like there's no Black people in this picture, I don't think she's talked to any Black person on her own, has a friend that she can literally reach out to and share and talk to, and realize that what she's saying is completely insane. Let's finish up.
First of all, so let me ask you a question as my answer.
Go on.
What percentage of Blacks have a father around when they're raised?
I'm not sure.
20%.
So
80% of Blacks do not have a stable father around. It is the most predictable way to end up in prison, end up as a murderer or a criminal.
And
it's not a
racism
problem. It's not a white supremacy problem. It's a fact that Black fathers impregnate women and they don't stay around with the women that they have impregnated.
Charlie Kirk, do you think that happens more in the Black community compared to others?
It's threefold. Number 1, we subsidize single motherhood. Number 2, it's culture. It's accepted in the Black community, and it shouldn't be.
Culture. Okay.
Don't take my word for it. Read Thomas Sowell's own book on how.
Okay, and I don't disagree with that. I'm gonna back up again because I want to hear. I hate that the young lady is interrupting him, but that's a very real reality, and I think it's interesting. It is very odd to me when a person who is not in a particular people group decides to argue for people in a different group that they're inferior or they're not able to do or whatever like that. It gets real dicey when you hear eventually they're going to say like these people have no choice but to be the worst of the worst. They have no choice because whatever reason they can't help themselves. That's wild work, y'all. Watch this.
Okay.
Don't take my word for it. Read Thomas Sowell's own book on how Black culture allows single motherhood to continue into a nanny state type practice. 75% of black youth are raised without a father in the home. 75%. Is that a bigger problem or not a bigger problem than whiteness, white privilege, or white supremacy?
How they should all be addressed, and they're all related.
Okay, how is a white person to blame for the fact that 75% of blacks...
Let's go.
Oh, individual white people aren't at all to blame.
Okay, we agree.
Well, white people, period.
But wouldn't it be more like smarter to be like, hey, that this is not about systemic racism. Like, stop impregnating your women and abandoning them?
Well, the way to incentivize not impregnating women and abandoning them is increasing access to healthcare, into housing, into everything that we know increases those outcomes for people.
So we have spent...
That sounds like Brandon Johnson from Chicago would say that. Like, he always brings access to low income housing in pretty much every solution to every problem that he has. Pretty much anytime he brings up a problem, that's the solution, or that's one of the solutions that he's going to bring up. That's some wild work. And no, I don't think they're in Chicago, so this is crazy work.
$30 trillion on the social welfare system since 1965. Black people are poorer, and the single motherhood went from 25% to now 75 to 80%. So the more money we've spent on Black America, the less fathers we have, because Black women divorced Black men and married the government.
And do you think that's a problem inherent to Black people?
No, it's not. It's happening now in white communities and Hispanic communities. It's just the worst in Black America.
And why do you think that is?
Why is it the worst in Black America? There's also a cultural problem. There is, and we have to be honest about it.
It's just that Black people are
no. Let me ask you a question. The average music that a Black person in Compton is listening.
I don't know if I would bring up primarily music anymore. It's definitely involved. It's not going to beat those charges, hands down. But and I believe they're in University of San Diego. That's what I believe they are. Don't quote me on that one, but I digress. I don't believe Charlie's going to bring up music. I don't think that's the biggest issue. And I've brought this up before. Like, it is a choice matter, and it spans across pretty much every group. It's not just Black people do this, or and white people, other people groups don't. It's a sin issue that we just don't want to do what God has called us to do, which is being married to our women before we start having children. That's it. That's really it. But okay, let them go.
Listening to, is it about contemplating the good, the true, and the beautiful, or is it about being a gangbanger and trying to get as much money and sleep with about as many girls as you can?
I would actually like to think I would be offended by that.
Do you think the average Black kid in Compton is listening to Beethoven or some sort of gangster rap music that glorifies gangster culture?
Silly question. Rap wasn't created to glorify gangster culture. So even though there is rap, I'm sure that's doing that.
You're dodging the question because...
Okay, I'm sure they're listening to rap.
Okay.
So you think rap music makes them leave their mom?
Do you think the cultural expectation in Black America is that you stay with the woman that you impregnate?
Within Black communities? I can't speak on that.
Okay, the answer is no. It's not. It's not expected.
Okay, and do you think
hold on, in white Anglo-Saxon Protestant communities, it's a fact. Hold on. In upper middle class white communities.
Upper middle class. Say that part louder.
Yeah.
I don't know why she's signifying after him, because he's not lying. She just doesn't like this reality. The reality doesn't match what she wanted to talk about, which is CRT, critical race theory. So yeah, she really is. This is some wild work. Let's go.
Upper middle class white Anglo-Saxon Protestant communities, if you impregnate a woman, you are looked down upon, and we do not think highly of you if you abandon the woman that you impregnate. Mm-hmm. That's a cultural difference. Has nothing to do with money. Has nothing to do with anything except norms. And the norms that have infected Black America are destroying it from within. We need more fathers, not less. We need more dads around and less drag queen story hour. We need more young Blacks to be able to look up to role models that are not leaving all the time and are not just saying, hey, I impregnated her, so be it. It's a toxin. And if we don't address that as the root cause, it's white supremacy, it's injustice, it's economics, we're dancing around the core of the issue.
I guess what I'm saying is, right, and you've perfectly actually laid out the dichotomy here. It is a fact, obviously, that Black people disproportionately commit crime in this country. No one's arguing that. But you either believe that that is due to a complex intersection of social, economic, and like leftover effects from previous.
We can make it so much simpler. People commit crimes because they're sinners. That's it. Stop trying to put the responsibility anywhere else but on the person who is making the choice to do a sin. Whatever it is really beyond the point. Charlie was talking about murder at one point, and later on we talk about larceny or whatever. It's completely a moot point. The point is that somebody chose to sin, and therefore therein is the problem. Crazy work. Let's go.
Inequalities, or you believe that that is an inherent trait to the race.
No, I don't, because they weren't that way in the 1940s and 50s. Black America was one of the most peaceful, flourishing, fastest growing economically communities in the country. It's not genetic. You're trying to point something on me that I don't believe. Instead,
but then
Black
you do
America.
Believe that.
No. And let me, because I see what he's doing, what the young lady's doing. I'm not 100% certain it's not called the genetic fallacy, but she's trying to impose that Charlie Kirk is saying that white people are superior and make better choices. No, they don't. White people sin just like you and any other people group sin because we're sinners. We just happen to do it. Black folk, they're highlighting what black folk do as the sin because the solution, quote unquote, was critical race theory. And therein is the problem. That's not the solution. And it's funny because I do believe, and I attest, that the main remedy for the problems that we're talking about is the Black family. The Black family is greatly needed within the Black community. Dads and moms being married, having children. End of day, that's it. That's greatly needed. And just the fact that they overlook that and they highlight the problems that are the byproduct of that missing element in the community is crazy. Okay, let's go. Shout out.
One of the most peaceful, flourishing, fastest growing economically communities in the country. It's not genetic. You're trying to point something on me that I don't believe. Instead,
but then
Black
you do
America,
believe that it's not genetic, so you do think CRT is correct.
Hold on a second.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
In the 1940s and 1950s, Black America was prosperous and was on pace to be richer and wealthier than white America. More dads were staying with the women that they were with. There was monogamy. What changed?
You're supporting my argument.
No, hold on. But answer the question. What changed? Did America get more racist since the 1950s?
I would argue there were more racist policies passed. There were more policies dedicated to
living in the 1950s
and pushing them into poor housing and poor schools.
Wait a second. In the 1950s, Jackie Robinson had not even broken the color barrier. We had Jim Crow laws. We hadn't passed the Civil Rights Act, and we hadn't passed the Voting Rights Act. Yet blacks were better in the 1950s per capita than they are today. So we have become less racist. We've passed more anti-racist laws and given more stuff, and blacks are worse than they were 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Why?
So you're equating here institutional and social racism.
What?
Social racism was certainly worse in the 1950s. I'm sure everyone would agree. But institutional racism occurs when policies are passed against people.
Come on.
Which can increase over time, and it did.
You're not being intellectually honest. You know that. There was black-only drinking fountains in the 1950s. We don't have those anymore. Well, we're bringing them back with, black-only dormitories. But we had, for example, in the antebellum South in the 1950s, we had white-only communities. White by law. We got rid of that with the Civil Rights Act. But it didn't, unfortunately.
Correct. Come on.
We look around, the numbers speak for themselves. Black youth are less likely to have fathers. They're not doing as well as far as economically. They commit more crime. So something changed. And our argument is what changed is three things. Number one, the imposition of the Great Society project by Lyndon Baines Johnson of spending $30 trillion since 1960s on Section 8 housing, on welfare, on all sorts where, as I said, that young black women married the government and they divorced young black men. And then we also have had as Thomas Sowell and as Clarence Thomas would say, the soft bigotry of low expectations. And we have been afraid to get to the root of the issue or even speak about it because we don't be called a racist.
So what is imposing those low expectations?
Part of it is like white academic culture. I'll give you an example. I'm not saying you believe this, but Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, has come out and said having an ID to vote is racist. That is code for saying black people are too dumb to get a voter ID.
You're doing it again. You're simplifying a very nuanced, complex argument.
No. You are overcomplicating a very simple argument. Getting an ID, how is that racist? I think Charlie should just ask those questions back to her. How is that racist? To say that somebody, a minority group or person of color or whatever, can't get an ID. Like, explain it to me. Because the person actually said getting a voter ID is racist. So like, how is that racist? I think he should just ask that question more. Let's go.
From the real people who are making it.
Is voter ID racist?
Obviously not, Charlie.
Okay, all right.
Do you want to know where the argument comes from? I can eloquently tell you.
Eloquently tell me why voter ID is racist or whatever.
Certain policies in southern states were proposed that would, like, I think the quote from the person who decided the case was, with surgical precision, target the times where Black people were voting and make it like illegal or harder for them to get that to come at that time. And then they were targeting the type of ID that Black voters had and making that specific type of ID illegal.
I live here in the South. The ID is your driver's license. What are you talking about? Now, I don't know what, if you don't have a driver's license, what are the other options? I tend to just, hey, I default to the best thing. I got my driver's license. What are we talking about? And the times to vote, I have no idea what this woman is talking about. I have no idea.
That is racist.
Perfectly fair. How does that impact today, saying that every citizen, if you need an ID to vote, just that aside, why is it racist?
Because we have to have, obviously humans are making those decisions, right? And so if there is still institutional racism and people in power that are racist, we can't trust those institutions to make those decisions.
What institutional racism do we have in this country right now?
I would have stayed with voter IDs. I thought that was a great one. I do have a voter ID video as well coming up later, but I think this is really interesting. And I do wish that he just stayed right there. Like, how is it wrong for anybody like this gentleman on her right? Or there's actually an Asian man wearing a plaid blue shirt right there. I would have maybe even asked him, okay, this gentleman right here, what makes it racist to tell him that he needs to have an ID, but it doesn't make it racist that this white man with the camouflage puffy coat to her right is not, that he would have it. Why would you assume that this man would have it, but this man right here would not? This is the low expectation, the bigotry of low expectation.
What you just named it.
What?
1350.
Okay, well, I mean,
affirmative action needs to happen because there is not that many minorities in these higher educations or higher education institutions.
Okay, so you're being clear, which is then you lower standards.
No.
Affirmative action always does. Affirmative action lowers standards by definition.
I'm saying why affirmative action was introduced. I'm not arguing for it.
Were you asking me why it was introduced, or
no? I'm saying you agree that's why it was introduced.
Well, I agree why it was. I don't think it ever should have been, but yes.
Right, I mean, but there is institutional inequality. Yes.
Well, I wouldn't even use the word inequality. I mean, I don't love looking at it that way, but of course, white people generally are richer than Black people in this country. Richer and more represented in politics and schools.
You know what? So are NBA players. There's what did she call it? Social inequality? What did she call it? Hold on, let me back up because I missed the term, I feel.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't even use the word inequality. I mean, I don't love looking at it that way, but of course, white people generally, I agree why it was. I don't think it ever should have been, but yes.
Right,
I mean,
but there is institutional inequality,
yes? There are institutional inequalities in the NBA. There you go. There's institutional inequalities probably at this college. Everybody doesn't get into this college. In most colleges, because they've lowered the standards, they're now in an attempt to not be institutional racist or inequalities, whatever. Now their particular product that they put out has been changed. It has decreased. So what are we talking about here? Crazy work, man. It is crazy work. Let's go.
Well, I wouldn't even use the word inequality. I mean, I don't love looking at it that way, but of course, white people generally are richer than Black people in this country. Richer and more represented in politics and schools. Yes. Somewhat yes and
why do you think that is,
no.
Charlie?
And less in hockey. You know what? And more in hockey and soccer, and there are probably more of them in baseball as well. And I'm pretty sure there's more white people that surf and ski than anything else. Like, man, we could do this all day long. It's just silliness to try to make these are the indicators of true racism in the world. When in actuality, let's go back to those voters' IDs. You have to have an ID to fly. You got to have an ID to go into your dorm or wherever you at this school right here. Ma'am, just stop it. Just stop.
On a second. Let's ask the question here. Represented how? So, I mean,
look at Congressman.
So, no, hold on a second. Are white people represented fairly in the National Basketball Association?
Oh, there we go.
Who cares? What political
power
does the
we're
national...
all about fair representation.
Listen.
I think that...
Because and the bad thing is, if she's really thinking about fair representation, then she's saying that there should only be 13% of quote unquote black people in Congress. I think there's more than that. I'd say it's a much higher number than that. So I don't think she really realizes, and maybe Charlie's going to push back on that, but I think she doesn't realize she's going to undercut her own argument in just a second if she continues down this road.
Should by law, half of the NBA should be white.
Great, fine.
And the product would suck.
Lobby for it.
Because
I don't
blacks
care.
are much better at basketball than we whites are.
What political power does the NBA have?
A lot, actually. The NBA reaches millions of people every day. They have slogans that people internalize. In fact, if the NBA had no political power, why would they have to wear Black Lives Matter on all their jerseys? Why would why would politicians try to get their endorsements all the time? The NBA is more powerful than Congress in some ways of shaping the minds.
It's your turn to be academically dishonest.
Hold on a second.
But sure.
No. But if you want fair representation, just to be clear, then why would you not be against whites by law being half of the National Basketball Association? Right now, black people make up 88% of the NBA.
Do it. Great. Who cares?
No,
I don't care. I'm saying,
okay.
Right. So here's my point.
But wouldn't that fix that? Wouldn't that be the fixing of the systemic, what did she call it? Systemic societal inequality of the NBA basketball, the NBA being 80% black and blacks only representing 15, 18% of the population? Wouldn't that fix the problem? Sure, whatever. Like, ma'am, this is what you brought up. You brought this up. Hands on her hips, y'all.
All right, fine. I have a shot, everybody.
Please listen.
I could play for the Lakers.
I hope. Do it, Charlie. I'll come to your games. I'll do it.
The point is this, is that merit should triumph over all of it.
Which is awesome. Okay, so merit should triumph. We agree.
Okay.
Okay, Charlie, do you think black people are not as smart or competent as white people? Perfect. So they should, in theory, then be equally represented in positions of power.
That's it.
Have you ever?
That's the problem. That's where I knew it. That's what she's doing. She's just trying to say that everybody, that she thinks there should be a 50-50, basically, is where she's trying to go. And Charlie was tall enough to be a basketball player. I don't know what his skills were, but again, he's pretty tall. But she's trying to say that, well, if you think, she thinks that everybody has the exact same, this is that smoothing out of everybody. Everybody should have the same opportunity, but everybody's not interested in that. So you're not going to get a full, great representation because black folk might not be interested in that. Sure, they might be equally represented intellectually, but they might not have an interest in that field or that area of study. So to say that, well, it should be equal in all of these areas, that's kind of dumb. It's kind of silly. But I'm 5'6". I'm completely the inverse of Charlie. So Charlie Kirk's tall for sure. All right. That's crazy, man.
Ever read Discrimination and Disparities by Thomas Sowell?
Do you only read Thomas Sowell? You've quoted him like 3 times. I haven't read that.
No, I read a lot more than Thomas Sowell, but I'm happy to.
It's appropriate in this
Thomas Sowell's the only intellectual with the courage to go after like these core issues of why Black America has fallen behind and why no one actually has studied it. So let's just give a great example. When you don't have a father in the home, the amount of words that a child hears goes down by 60 to 70%. The amount of words that a child, I don't know if you're a mother or not, or plan to be. Okay. No, just it's an important point. The amount of words that an 18-month-old hears is highly predictive of IQ, verbal development. Okay. So that's simple. When you don't have a dad in the home, the mom is overwhelmed and there's just less interaction with the child.
That's all fine.
Okay. So we agree. I'm just saying that's not because of racism.
That's true. Obviously,
no, that's fine.
That's good.
No, she, I know what you meant. But you have a father in the home. All of a sudden, they hear thousands of more words a day, and they're like way further ahead of a single mother raising a child. That's not racism.
Okay, so dads are good. Yes, great.
Okay.
My question to you is, I'm
saying dads actually answer most of the questions that you might have about why Black America is falling behind.
Okay, but
because their dads don't stay around, and that's
I'm trying to sort of get you to reconcile your own beliefs. And if that's true, which is fine, that's true. We can say that's true. You either believe that has social and economic causes, or you believe that, Black culture is just worse.
No,
and there isn't another thing to think.
No, I was very clear. Right now, Black culture is being held captive by influences, songs, and role models. I mean, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B.
Okay, Nicki Minaj is causing dads to leave the home.
Hold on, I don't think
that's such a. I don't like the overtalk. I really don't like it. I wish she would allow him don't signify, because some of those significations throw off the argument. I wish you would just allow him to finish up the thought. But there are influences, the influence of society, that it is okay to be a baby mama. It is okay to have 2 and 3 baby mamas. That is a problem. That's it. That is societal norm that needs to be completely upended and rooted out of our culture. That's it. That's it. So stop acting like, but I don't think that she actually knows what she's talking about. She's academic in this part. She probably does well in her classes. She probably is doing well in life, and because she's regurgitated this foolishness, but it's not applicable in real life. And I think that's the problem.
Good role model for 18-year-old black girls. I don't think that songs that are talking about like glorifying wet female genitalia is exactly, I don't know which one wrote that song. Which one was it?
I think it was Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But by the way, the role models of the 1940s and 50s for Black America were completely different.
So it is a representation issue.
Hold on a second. No, not representation.
No.
It's who do you get your art from? It's what values are they putting forward? It's the question of every day. For example, more times than not, Black politicians will lament the condition of America. It's systemically racist. It's terrible. What does that do to a 14-year-old Black kid if you just find that you hear that everything is rigged against you? Instead, they should be saying, hey, there might be some barriers, but if you believe in yourself enough, you can achieve in this country. It creates a form of social conditioning of low expectations. And that's not my argument. You know whose argument that is? Barack Obama's.
Yep.
I don't necessarily agree with everything you said either, man.
Barack Obama said, number one, we need more fathers in the home. This is when Barack Obama didn't go super woke.
Barack Obama's a liberal. I don't care what he's got to say.
Okay, but Barack Obama, then secondly, he said that we can't keep telling our Black youth that you can't succeed in this country. Anybody can succeed in this country. And Obama was right when he said that. Obama was correct when he said that we need to change the story we're telling Black America.
Which is fine. I've never heard any teacher look at a Black person and say, oh, you can't succeed because of racism.
Hold on a second. But what is the embedded message
literally said that,
of all the propaganda saying it's systemically racist, you're going to run into racist employers, that they're going to discriminate against you? It creates this heaviness of why even try?
By the time.
But she's actually, that's exactly what she said when we started, though. It's funny that she's literally now, I guess, arguing against herself. Like, put her on the other side of the debate mic. She's honestly arguing against what she came up here, or at least shooing away what she came up here to bring up.
College students get to college. They've experienced all that. They don't need to be told.
You think that the average, I'm curious, you think that the average Black student at this university experiences like active daily racism? I'd be curious.
I'd have to ask.
Okay, there's a Black guy.
Maybe it's true. Maybe it's as bad as it was in the antebellum South. So
I'm not saying that, obviously.
Okay.
I did say social racism improved. I'm saying institutional racism is still present, and that's what's causing lower outcomes for minority communities.
Do you think the reason why only 20 to 25%, it depends, we don't know the number, it's just a range per year.
Sure.
So 1 in 4 of Black youth have a stable father around. What would you just say is why is that the reason?
A complex intersection of social and economic reasons, which are outlined in CRT.
Okay. Thank you for the dialogue. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, that was a little bit painful.
So,
I'm not gonna lie. That was kind of painful. I don't think, if you want to hold on to an idea that we are not responsible for our behavior, then you're going to be able to find you're not going to be satisfied by Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, I guess the underlying tenor, if you want to boil it down, like what would be a good overall tenor? The overall tenor is that we're responsible for our actions and our outcomes. That would be a good overall that you can point to and say, this is what Charlie Kirk was about. And so I really believe that this poor young lady just doesn't want to admit that she's responsible. I'm responsible. We're responsible for our outcomes. I'm responsible for the things that I do or don't do, the things I get or I don't get, so on and so forth. Those are my responsibilities. Now, of course, there are some factors that are going to play a role in it. And I cannot say that I'm everything I want, I'm going to get. I'm not going to say that. But I'm responsible for the vast majority of what I do get. And what I don't get is because of what I've done. That's really it. And I don't think she wants to admit that. And though it is pretty true that that's the situation, she doesn't want to admit that. All right, let's keep it going. Now, I didn't bring this up the other day, and a lot of people were asking about it. So the next one is, let's go ahead and get this Andrew Colvett, Dave Rubin discussion out of the way. I didn't get a chance to watch it in its entirety. And I realized I was like, let's just watch it together. And maybe I'll just watch it and let it play. Maybe not even say a lot about it. And just kind of let everybody get a chance to hear it for themselves. I've heard conflicting things about it. And I was like, I don't know. I've heard people say it was great. Some people said it's horrible. Some people said that Andrew Kovac is fantastic. People said they're no longer going to support Turning Point because of it. And so I thought it would be good for us to just maybe take the time, watch it ourselves as a group, hang out, and then we can chat. I might just play it and then we'll just jump into the chat and talk about it, see what we think about it, and give it a chance to tease out. So anyway, if you don't mind, green hearts in the chat when you can hear. Let's do it like that. Well, first of all, it's got to pop up. There we go. Green hearts in the chat when you can hear.
He was very nervous about that. He was nervous about it, not because he loves Iran. He thought Iran was a, tyrannical regime and an evil regime that sowed terror and chaos and destruction and death. He was nervous about it from a coalitional standpoint because he knew that kids on campus don't like war. And they were one of the things that he would tell kids, and they would react very positively about on campus, was that Trump is the peace president, that he's got to know new wars, that this is you're not going to get drafted into World War III. And so when Midnight Hammer came, he was nervous, right? He was nervous that we're losing the young vote that had come so far our direction in 2024 to things like Epstein, the files and the binders with Pam Bondi. He was worried that we're going to lose it because of Iran. So Charlie worked privately behind the scenes to try and push for restraint, for peace. Is there more of a diplomatic option that you could pursue? Ultimately, we know what happened. Trump sent the B-2 bombers. They hit Fort O and some other sites. And Charlie looked straight into the camera. I remember he was on Fox with Jesse Waters at that point. And he said, listen, this is why we work so hard to get President Trump elected. It's because we trust his instincts not to get us into a forever war, not to get us embroiled in another quagmire in the Middle East. And he can do this with precision strikes, and he can do it this way and that way. This is a bigger challenge, admittedly.
I'm Dave Rubin, and joining me today is the executive producer and co-host of the Charlie Kirk Show, Andrew Kovac. Andrew, we look like long-lost brothers here. I guess we could do the interview either way if you want to do it that way. That would be fine.
Okay, that'd be better, actually. Yeah, I actually wore my green blazer. I'm told I'm a little colorblind, but happy St. Patty's Day to you, Dave.
Happy St. Patty's Day to you. I should wear something. Find me something green.
You're Irish, right, Dave?
There's some Irish around here somewhere, but there's a lot of leprechauns in this house right now. He'll find me something. Okay, so let's dive in. There's a lot to talk about, but I thought before we do any of the politics, any of the headaches, and all of the other stuff, we are just over 6 months since the assassination of both of our friend, but your very, very close friend and your colleague. I've known you for years. I didn't know exactly what your title was, but to me, you were always just kind of Charlie's right-hand man. If I saw Charlie, you were just within feet of him always. Give me something 6 months later that's not about the political fighting and everything else. Give me something about Charlie just to set us off on a nice tone, and then we'll dive into everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how nice of a tone. The 6 month mark was actually really hard for me personally. I said as much actually on Megyn Kelly's show recently, and a bunch of people sent me that clip because they said that they were feeling the same. I wish I could tell you it's gotten easier. I still wake up every morning and he's still the first thing I think about. And the fact that he's not with us still blows my mind. I think the silver lining to that is just that he was just that incredible. He was just remarkable. And I wish I could tell you that I fully understood how remarkable and amazing he was when he was alive. I knew he was great. Obviously I spent 8 years of my life, doing everything I could to make him successful, and my meager contribution to that, because he was going to be successful, didn't matter. It didn't matter that it was me that was fighting alongside him or anybody else. He was going to find a way. So it was really an honor that I got to see a truly historical figure so up close, and a martyr, a Christian martyr, an American martyr, a free speech martyr. And I got to just see the way he lived his life, the way he chose his people, the way he chose his words, the way he navigated, a den of vipers that's, known as American politics. It's truly a man of integrity, truly a man of great conviction, of great energy, and great patriotism and great faith. And I mean, we're about to get into the messy part of this conversation in just a bit. And it's hard not to draw a direct line between Charlie's assassination and some of the craziness that we've all seen.
Yeah. And it's weird even that we both feel that, because we spoke for a minute or two before we started recording here, and there obviously is a whole bunch of messy stuff. And I'm sure you've seen it, but there's that meme now, which is showing Charlie as the dam. And, basically when Charlie left us, that we've just been flooded with insanity from a lot of quarters that we didn't think insanity was gonna come from. How is that? So we'll get into some of the details on that, but how is that just the general state of craziness from probably people you considered allies and friends? How much has that made it more difficult to continue Charlie's legacy over the last, half year?
Yeah. It's this weird dichotomy between the online lived experience and then just the IRL, right? And, the in real life, interactions have been amazing, honestly. In Charlie, you feel just, the legacy that Charlie leaves behind in those interactions, interpersonal, and people just how much they loved him, how much they are trying to support us and want to support his mission and keep it going and want to support Turning Point. And that's been amazing. It genuinely has been heartwarming. And I wish people could on the internet could feel what I feel and see what I see, because it's overwhelming. And then there's the internet, right? Then there's social media, and you get like a whole different perspective, and you feel the venom. And I think that's a sort of a casualty of our modern world, is that the incentive structure online is so much different than it is interpersonally. And I think it skews realities, it skews perceptions. And I think that's a real danger. So some of the messiness has certainly made things more difficult. And that does end up translating into IRL, right? It does end up translating into what our students experience on campus. It does end up translating into, I think a perceived political moment that we're in. And that's hard. But, to think that Charlie could have been the dam forever, especially on things like foreign policy, I think is naive as well. I want to make sure that, Charlie was not Jesus. Charlie loved Jesus. Charlie worshiped Jesus, followed him. So, he was not God here, right? And we were looking at this coming tsunami, whether it be the Epstein stuff, whether it be Israel and foreign policy in Iran. We knew that eventually this stuff was going to come to a head. And Charlie, a few weeks before he was killed, sent me this list of the Greek virtues. And I think about it all the time, because it's a guiding light for what we're still trying to do at Turning Point and what I think the movement needs. And at the top of that list was philosopher, statesman. At the bottom of that list was performer, carnival barker. And I think, when I look around social media, like I look to see what people are trying to be the statesmen and the philosophers, and what people are really just being entertainers, right? Because podcasting and doing a show, it could be both, right? You could be trying to really elevate the discourse. You could be trying to get the right people elected. You could be trying to make things better, or you could just be, burn it all down so we can recreate the GOP in our image, people, because it's all doom and gloom and there's no point in it anymore. Because we have to share a party with Lindsey Graham or something. So I don't relate to those people. I don't respect those people. Charlie wanted to be the higher virtues, which is philosopher, statesman, coalition builder, and that's But I'm not naive to think that Charlie alone could have kept back I think that the meme goes, the retardation so many of us are experiencing.
Yeah, it's also one of the reasons why, we've watched all these people share text messages with Charlie and private communications with him, which I have plenty of those things, and I would never share them. It's just so extraordinary that people would use them for their own political purposes on, basically dancing on someone's grave. So let's just do the hard part of some of this right now real quick, and then we can finish on the messaging side, which is some of the people that not only Turning Point has been associated with, but that I personally have been associated with. And as you know, I used to go on the tours with Charlie.
Clean here, Dave. Yeah.
I think I'm looking pretty good, actually. But some of the people that I've been associated with, that Charlie was associated with, that Turning Point was associated with, have really taken this thing to a very evil place. And obviously, at the top of that list is Candace. You, I'm sure, were on some of those tour stops with us. I know you were on some of the tour stops with us, and subsequently other events with them and things of that nature. I mean, what do you want people to do with her at this point, with everything she has done? We don't have to dissect the entire. We don't have to do the entire autopsy on everything that she's done here.
I mean, let's take a quick step back before I get in directly on that. I just want everybody to remember that if you talk about some of the people that Turning Point and Charlie had been associated with, it's good to be in a coalition where you disagree with people on different issues. Okay, Dave, you and I disagree about a lot. I mean,
I wouldn't have been there if Charlie didn't believe that. Yeah.
When we first ran into each other, it was in Florida a little while ago, which kind of led to me being here right now. I think we spent, 5-10 minutes about, all the things we disagree on, and it was fine. And
of course,
I understood, listen, we've got lots of deep-seated disagreements, but I can then turn around and say, but it's okay that we're having this conversation right now. Okay. That's a good thing. And I remember we took a ton of crap for having like Cenk at the Cenk, however you say his name, your former colleague at the Young Turks at Amfest in 2024 after we won. It was like this huge controversy online. And so I just want to like start off there, because Turning Point is under such incredible pressure by so many different people. Much has been made about the conversations Charlie was having with Jewish folks, and some were donors. I think it was really only one that was a Jewish donor. Before he was killed, and he was getting frustrated by the pressure that they were putting on him to get rid of Tucker at Amfest or whatever. Right? We're getting it from both sides all the time, and one of the that I'm going to be adamant about in this conversation and in any subsequent conversation is that, yes, that's a fair conversation. I'm not saying you can't have the conversation, but just everybody needs to understand that we are getting from all sides this pressure. You can't have this person. You can't have this person. You can't have this person. And so I just want to state that at the outset here, because it's a reality that I've become very accustomed to, that Charlie had become very accustomed to. And it's a fair conversation about what the coalition is, what is in the realm of acceptable, what's in the realm of unacceptable. Okay. So to the Candace question, obviously, I'm on team you shouldn't be attacking widows. I don't think that gives somebody blanket immunity forever. I've never suggested that. The Bible's very clear, just for people that are curious, that going after widows is a really bad.
Okay, so I hear, because I heard a lot of people say, let me big screen that. I've heard a lot of people say, Andrew Colvett said he's never going to part ways with Tucker and blah, 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 and I'm done with him. I see what they're talking about. I'm not going to lie. I totally get it. I see exactly what they're talking about. That was not, I don't think that was the best way to go about it. I understand what Charlie was doing, but again, I don't think just saying that I disagree with you on certain things, and I don't know what Andrew and Dave Rubin actually disagreed on. I'm not trying to say I had to get into the weeds of it, but I'm not getting the vibe that they really disagreed on certain things that are tearing apart TPUSA at this moment. I don't think that they were there. Sure, they probably disagreed on some other social problems. I can totally see that, but I don't know if they didn't. Maybe they should have teased it out, because I can totally see why a lot of people the other day when this video came out, they were in the chat saying, I'm done with TPUSA. I saw it on X. TPUSA is done because XYZ. Yeah, I can see what they're talking about. I can't say that it's done, but I don't think this comes across well. This comes across entirely too milquetoast. And I said this on a show earlier, at some point we're not going to say, well, what would Charlie do? As if we could, theorize exactly what Charlie would do in this moment right now, because this moment isn't by itself. There's a whole 6 months since Charlie died that have happened to bring us to today. So what Charlie would do in this moment, we don't know, because first of all, we don't know what the 6 months would have been like. And of course, there was that moment that took him off the board altogether. So the idea of keep saying, well, what would Charlie do? How would Charlie handle this? I don't think we need to have that. At this moment now, it's what are y'all going to do? Well, what are y'all going to do? And I don't think they're thinking about that fully. So let's bring him back in. Let's see what he's got. Let's go.
That idea. And I just want to stay up front that Erica, I've known Erica since they started dating, since Charlie and Erica started dating. I remember the first time I met Erica, it was actually at Politicon in Los Angeles many, many years back.
Oh, man.
And I was like, who is this gal? Like, and Charlie was like, oh, she's hanging out with us today. Charlie, you could tell there was something different though. And I logged it. And Erica has always been tremendous, and she never sought the limelight. She was always very happy to sort of be doing her own thing and just be supportive of Charlie. And she's never been anything but just high character, just warm. She was a total asset to Charlie in the sense that, Charlie was so missional. He was so direct. He was so kind of on just, Energizer Bunny, get and direct about what he needed to get done. And Erica was this humanizing presence just for the staff, for whether it was donors or politicians or whoever he was meeting with. And she was just so, but content to be in the background and be the mom. And Charlie told us multiple times, if anything happens to me, Erica's going to be in charge. Said that to us on the staff, said it to his board.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a secret when Charlie was killed what was going to happen next. We all knew that he had been very clear about that. And so the attacks on Erica I find to be obviously abhorrent. I find them to be diabolical. I find them to be gross. They're beyond the pale. They're unprecedented. And the only thing I can think of to make any of it make sense is that there was a huge outpouring of the Holy Spirit. There was a huge outpouring.
I'm gonna back up for a second. I'm gonna let Andrew. I'm gonna give Andrew a little second to gather his thoughts. Old lady right here, I disagree with you. I don't think, and I'm pretty sure you would. Charlie didn't want to toss aside people for their opinions, since that is what the left does. I guarantee you don't believe this. You don't believe this. Because all I would say is, then why don't they have Candace come on the stage? Then following this logic, then they need to have Candace on. Candace was still under contract for 3 more years. They just severed that contract recently. So following this logic, you would want them to allow her back on. Am I wrong? I think it's fair to say that you don't believe that. Then we need to have Candace back. If Candace has an opinion, she has an opinion. I mean, Tucker has an opinion, for crying out loud. Then what you're okay with Tucker? Then what would be the reason? What would be the reason to not have Barack Obama on there, for crying out loud? Except for the fact that he's a Democrat or a leftist. I mean, outright, but those are opinions and ideas. I think when we really play it out, we don't believe that. We really don't. I think it's okay to not believe it. There we go. Greg said it. Toleration within limits, sure. And I think that's what most people are saying. Like, we believe that tolerate things within limits, but we do think like Tucker is out of limits. We think Megan is out of limits. Candace has gone out of solar system. So I don't think that most of us in application, we want toleration within. We want, limited tolerance. That's it. Okay, let's bring him back up in here. What do you got, Andrew? Let's see. Andrew got his thoughts together. Let's go.
Is that there was a huge outpouring of the Holy Spirit. There was a huge outpouring of God's presence and light in the aftermath of Charlie's assassination. There was prayer vigils, candlelight vigils. There was the memorial that was seen by hundreds of millions of people.
I was in that room. I saw you there. I didn't get a chance to say hi, but I've never experienced anything like that ever in my life, and probably never will again. Yeah.
No, I like it was truly amazing. Bible sales shooting through the roof. Reports that church attendance spiked and baptism spiked. This moment that the enemy meant for evil, God was using for good, and is still using for good. And I firmly believe that what God has unleashed, man cannot stop. And that means that includes Candace, that includes anybody else that's going after Erica or trying to attack Turning Point. So I rest very easy knowing that God has this under control, and that God is going to see this through, and that we have a role to play in that. Certainly,
I agree with Andrew. No argument there. All I'm gonna say, however, is we still are responsible to make sure that we're doing the best. That we're doing the best with what we have. God is ultimately going to bring about, but would you invite the devil in and say, "Oh well, it doesn't matter. God's going to bring about the result he wants"? Like, no, we would deliberately intentionally say, no, Satan is not allowed in our organization. Well, let's just take it some steps down then. Same thing. I think it's fair to do that.
That doesn't absolve us from responsibility, but that God is going to see this through, that it's going to run its course, whether people try and get in the way or not. And I just truly believe that when Charlie went to go be with Jesus, that heaven rejoiced at a martyr coming home, and that the light unleashed into the world was so tremendous that the devils and the demons were shrieking in terror, and they realized they'd screwed up. And so what you're seeing is this dark reaction to a light unleashing upon the world that we've never seen in our living life.
Do you believe, Andrew Colvett, that now March 19th, 2026, that light has gotten brighter or the light has gotten dimmer? Do you believe that again, everybody saw it, everybody agrees that there was definitely heightened spiritual sensitivity after Charlie Kirk died? A lot of people were reflecting on their own lives. I'm going back to church. I haven't been in years. I've never been to church at all. I'm taking my kids to church for the first time. I'm buying Bibles, all that kind of stuff. Has that increased now, March 19th, 2026, or has it decreased? And what would be the reason for that increase or decrease, would you say, Andrew Colvett? That would be my push. That would be my question for that.
At times. And so I just I rest easy knowing that God's got it. That being said, I obviously find it to be discussed. And I think without dignifying so much of what's been leveled, because so much of it is just complete garbage and full of lies and mistruths and misrepresentations, I believe that it will all shake out in the end, and we'll see very clearly in hindsight. At least that's my prayer and my hope.
All right, so let me ask you about the moment that I think everything kind of really went haywire, which was when Tucker, and obviously Tucker had already sort of made an ideological shift or whatever that was causing some problems when Charlie was around, and is what it is. But when within 3 months of Charlie's assassination, Tucker had Nick Fuentes on, and as far as I know, but you could correct me, the only person that I saw that Charlie actively wanted to keep out of Turning Point, out of the movement and everything else, was Nick Fuentes. I was at Turning Point events that Fuentes showed up with his crew, and they were trying to get in there and create chaos and chase people down and all the usual shenanigans and everything else. What do you make of the fact that Tucker had him on within 3 months of Charlie being assassinated? Again, the only guy that I know of that Charlie wanted to keep out, and really just glazed him for an hour, like did not offer any substantive pushback or anything else.
So before he jumps in, let me stop. That is a very true reality. Dave Rubin did a great job of explaining that. That's probably where most people started their Tucker Carlson, what are you doing campaign. Now, there were some things that happened before then, but I think the Nick Fuentes interview was really the beginning, where Nick Fuentes talked about the failed art student, how much he reveres Stalin. And again, there was no pushback. It was not a combative debate. It was not a challenge. It was not any kind of push in any way, shape, or form against. It was literally to bring Nick Fuentes into the mainstream and see that he really he really isn't that bad a guy. He's just a quirky guy that talks weird. That's how I came across. So I agree with Dave Rubin here. Let's see how Andrew unpacks it. Shout out to the best live chat on the internet. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking questions, and listen, there's like kind of the Ben Shapiro approach to this, where where you don't need more friends, and I'm not going to interpret politics through the lens of friendship, and and then there's kind of Charlie's lens, where Charlie, the friendship quotient here still means a lot. And so I say that just at the outset, because I have had a friendship with Tucker. I have remained in communication. I've told him that I didn't love the way that interview happened. Obviously, I don't think Charlie would have loved the way that interview happened. But knowing what I know about Tucker, first of all, nobody's going to tell him what to do. Second of all, the way he does these interviews, usually there's like a dinner the night before the interview. And it's almost like when I heard this was happening, I just in my head knew that there was time spent and there was a relationship built, and there was really no hope of a truly adversarial interview because of just what I know of Tucker. And there's just, it's part of his charm. It's part of his relationship.
But he is able to do it when he wants to, right? I mean, look what he's done.
Yeah,
with Cruz and Huckabee.
True.
So
we saw that with Ted Cruz, and we saw that with Governor Huckabee, Ambassador Huckabee. Yeah, and listen, I feel like when we talk about things being messed up, by the way, Dave, in the aftermath of everything that was going on, you had these attacks from Candace and from others, and then you had people like Fuentes, weirdly enough, calling it out as obviously not true. It was very convoluted. It was disorienting. Everything that was up is now down, and down is now up. But listen, I happen to be, I've talked with I think our mutual friend Steve Dace about this. He said it on our show. And he too remains in contact with Tucker and is trying to understand where he's coming from, but I tend to still remain in the camp that, this coalition, if we have any hope of it surviving for the midterms, especially towards 2028, is it big enough? Is it stable enough? Could it survive if you pushed out Tucker? And I that's a huge question, and everybody's got a different answer. I don't think that is the right approach.
I'm sorry. You can't just say a minute ago that God is responsible for this organization and God is going to bring it about, and then say, well, we can't get rid of people that we think might be problematic. You can't do it. That's speaking out of both sides of your mouth. If you believe that God is going to bring it about, then you have to agree then that God will bring it about with the number of people that he wants. And the people that he wants there, whether it be Tucker or whatnot, you can't say that. So either you're going to say that God can't without Tucker, or God can with Tucker, or vice versa. You can't do that. I don't think he thought about that too well. I can see why people are upset. I can see why people are frustrated. I'm not going to lie.
I think that interview aside, which I agree was not adversarial enough, and like I said, I told him as much. I still think that Tucker is wildly popular. He has a huge platform and a lot of influence, and there are questions that are being raised about America's involvement with Israel that I think are fair. I think there are times where it goes too far, and but yeah, I mean, listen, there's no doubt Charlie, Fuentes and Charlie had a history where they were trying to infiltrate Turning Point. That Charlie didn't like that, didn't like the anti-Semitism, didn't like the Jew hate. I thought it was a brain rot. I agree that it's a brain rot straight from the pit of hell, and we need to make sure that it does not take root in the conservative movement. It cannot take a root in the Christian evangelical movement as well. And so,
right, I would argue Tucker is probably the epicenter of that, but we can punt that.
So I agree with Dave Rubin, man. I can totally see, shout out to the best live chat on the internet. I'm glad that we're able to kind of navigate this as a watching community. We don't have to fight with one another, but I do think that this is not a good look. I'll just summarize it as that. I don't think this is a good look for Turning Point to say that, hey, we still, but hook or crook, we still got to have Tucker on board. And again, Tucker, somebody asked about it. Like, he had Nick Fuentes on. Don't quote me on this. I want to say it's like by week 3 or 4. And somebody can look it up. I'm sure it'll pop up in the chat. So there's some more to it than just saying, oh, he just wanted to have Nick Fuentes on. Like, that was immediately after, which is crazy work. He wouldn't have done that with him being alive. That's crazy. So, yeah, I hate it because I do think that there's a lot to that point. Thank you so much, Colleen. All right, let's bring them back up in here. Let's go.
I think there is, yeah. I mean, I think I don't think you're wrong. I think, without putting words in Tucker's mouth, or, I'm just observing, but I do think
I would say listen to his own words.
Yeah. Well, I do think there is a concern that the strong ties between the United States and Israel, I'm not saying sort of from me, I'm saying from Tucker's side and from people in that camp, is that linchpin is really the evangelical right. And there's a whole theological debate. We don't necessarily need to get into it right now, between dispensationalism and replacement theology and all of that stuff. So there are actually, it's okay to disagree about dispensationalism and replacement.
You have to look at this. And again, I've said this before many, many times. Andrew Colvett is problematic to me because his name kept coming, and Candace kept having Andrew's name in her mouth, and it's problematic. So think about it like this. Tucker had him on, and mind you, Nick Fuentes, that was probably the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first mainstream interview that Nick Fuentes has had in years. So the idea and the notion that he would have been, like Nick Fuentes would have been booked, is limited. So somebody said it depends on when he had him booked. Guess what? That means he thought nobody knew that Charlie Kirk was going to be murdered. So if he had him booked before Charlie was alive, that's problematic because he's still on the TPUSA stage. If he booked him after Charlie Kirk was killed, that's actually problematic because it shows that he wouldn't have done it while Charlie was alive. So I think there's a lot of problems there. And again, y'all can still rock with Tucker, but I do think that Tucker is, Andrew's name was the one around the Jewish donors. The WhatsApp, I want to say it was the WhatsApp, was the having the meeting with Josh Hammer and the Jewish rabbi. That came from Andrew, I think. Again, Andrew's name came up a lot. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if I can get with Andrew like that. Okay, let's get done. Good call.
Theology, but when it devolves into the scapegoating of Jewish people, that's where we actually have to just purely draw the line. Our Savior, your Christian, was a Jewish man that walked, in Jerusalem and walked in Israel, and so hating Jews is just a dead end. It's an evil ideology and brain rot, and we have to snuff it out. We cannot put up with it. There has to be zero order for anti-Semitism. There just really has to.
Let me just ask you one more about one other person, and then we can just try to get back to the idea set for the remainder, which is obviously there's been some strange stuff going on the Megyn Kelly side of stuff, and most of it seems to be that a lot of people for months were basically just saying to her online, "Hey, could you basically call out Candace because of what she's saying about Erica?" And she didn't for months, and she said she didn't want to go after a young mother, even though she goes after everybody. That's her job, basically. And now it's really devolved into something else. Again, it's sort of an annoying question in some sense, but do you wish that some of the people that Charlie embraced just would have defended his legacy better? I mean, I've really tried to defend his legacy to the best of my ability. I'm not patting myself on the back. I did what I think is right, and I think others have as well. But to watch some of the people not defend the legacy, even ones that Charlie was a star maker. Like, he made stars. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, Megyn Kelly would not be one of the stars that Charlie made. But yeah, listen, more broadly, yeah, of course, I wish everybody was rallying, full-throated defenses of Erica Kirk. But I'm not going to demand that everybody in the influencer show, podcast sphere make this their war. Right. I'm not going to demand that they make this their war too. Right. Meghan, I think, again, she's a friend. She's somebody. I just did her show. I've talked with her offline. I feel like I understand her perspective on things. Do I disagree with it? Certainly. I wish she would have been more, the young mother line, I think was regrettable in a massive way. Do I think that she is somehow believing some of the stuff about Erica or Turning Point? No, not at all, actually. She's kind of got like a bent like Charlie had, where if the pressure comes in to push her to denounce or disavow or to do certain things, it's almost like you're going to drive her in the other direction. That's just the way that she's kind of wired. Do I wish that she had made this her fight too? Probably. That would be great. I would love that from her and Tucker and from others. But they've chosen not to, and I can't control them. But again, I'm looking at this from a lens of, what do we need to do in this moment of massive, maximal tumult and chaos and confusion to be to be a place and a platform and a rallying point where people like Dave Rubin could come, where people like Meghan could come. So it's like we've got to. I want to still maintain that, and the real challenge is now. Like, it was in some ways easier before, but how do we do this now? And it's a real challenge, I'm telling you, because I have my personal emotional response to a lot of this stuff, and it's not dissimilar from yours, Dave. And then I have this, what I believe is a sacred duty to try my best, as difficult as it is in the midst of these emotions, to honor what Charlie would have us do. And I don't know exactly what Charlie would do all the time, and I'm sure I get it wrong. And Lord knows I hear about it on on Twitter or social media.
Okay, I gotta stop. Charlie's not the standard. I know that might be a shock. Charlie's not the standard. You've been given an opportunity. This would be very much akin to saying, what would my great grandfather do in a moment like this? Like, at some point, you're going to say, hey, the family has to move on because great granddad's not here. Great granddad would have no idea what to do with a Waymo, would have no idea what to do with this internet thing. Like, at some point, we're going to say, okay, we are now moving the family and building off of the legacy of our granddad or the legacy of our ancestor, the legacy of our founder, but we are now moving forward, and we can't keep looking back and saying, well, what would he do? What would they have done? We got to move forward in that. And at some point, I think that has to happen. And I know it's only been 6 months. I'm not trying to be over simplified. I just think that at some point, it's no longer Charlie's responsibility, because this is what I think it comes across to me. Like, by me saying, what would Charlie have done? What would our ancestor have done? What would the founder have done? It's taking the responsibility off of me to do the thing. Well, I did this because I thought this is what great granddad wanted me to do, or I think this is what the founder would have wanted me to do. No, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing. Granddad trusted me to do this, and there we go. We're off to the races. So therefore, I'm just going to move forward. And it's not a matter of just keep looking back and saying, what would he have done, or what would our ancestor have done, or the founder would have done. Now it's, what did I do? And we did what we thought was right. Now there is the problem. Why do you think this is right, though? I don't think Andrew has made it clear why they think that having somebody there is the right thing. Not what Charlie thought, but why do they think it? Right? Because they're doing things that Charlie may have never known about. Some of the things that have happened, they had no idea would ever have happened. So don't keep pointing at Charlie, almost giving you a get out of jail free card for making decisions or not making decisions, right? Okay, let's keep it going. Shout out to the best live channel on the internet.
Media, but I am trying my best, as is Erica, as is the leadership, to try and honor what Charlie would do it and put forward that spirit. Obviously, there's a line. There is a line. And I would think Charlie would believe that too. And you've got to fight back. And I totally believe in that. We're trying our best, sort of in the, that famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, right? If you can keep your head when everybody else is losing theirs. And that's, I think, really the challenge of our moment. And I am endeavoring to do that every day through prayer. I will tell you, like, if you're praying, people out there watching this, I can feel the prayers of strangers, genuinely. And I know Erica said the same. And so keep praying for us, for wisdom, for guidance in this time. It's not easy, was everybody's going crazy different directions, but I want to maintain what Charlie called the higher ideals, and that's statesmanship and philosopher, and do our best to institute that in the way we react to this, the way we respond to this. Do it with prudence, do it with wisdom, and keep our heads about this.
Let me ask you one last thing. If Charlie was with us in this moment, and putting aside the influencer wars and the flame wars and all that kind of stuff, if he was, realizing where we were middle of March, midterms coming, a lot of political craziness, cultural craziness, what do you think, beyond what you just laid out there, the sort of like highest ideal set, what do you think he would be trying to make everybody understand at the issue level right now, so that the midterms don't go awry, and then Trump, which is, who he fought for harder than anybody for 10 years, basically is over, 6 months from now?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a question that I ask myself every day, actually, as we kind of keep the Charlie Kirk show going. And I to go back to your meme, right? Part of that meme is, stay focused on winning, right? It's the little town that's about to get demolished by the dam breaking. And so yeah, that's kind of what we think a lot about, actually. And I think about the Iran conflict and war that's going on. We took some hot water on the show. It wasn't me personally. It was actually some of the other guys that were on the show that said it this way, but I was in the clip, so I'm lumped in. We're sort of saying, here's probably how Charlie would have reacted, right? And I think you need to have a lot of humility when you say those things, because he's not here, and he's not reacting to all of the incoming and all the data points to form his next and newest opinion. So you're kind of going off what we experienced with Midnight Hammer, for example, and I saw that up close. We were white knuckling together. We were trying to work through how to message on it, what to say about it, what to think about it, what to feel about it. And what I can tell you from Midnight Hammer, because that actually happened, I actually saw it, is he was very nervous about that. He was nervous about it not because he loves Iran. He thought Iran was a tyrannical regime and an evil regime that sowed terror and chaos and destruction and death. He was nervous about it from a coalitional standpoint, because he knew that kids on campus don't like war. And they were one of the things that he would tell kids, and they would react very positively about on campus, was that Trump is the peace president, that he's got to know new wars, that this is you're not going to get drafted into World War III. And so when Midnight Hammer came, he was nervous, right? He was nervous that we're losing the young vote that had come so far our direction in 2024 to things like Epstein, the files and the binders with Pam Bondi. He was worried that we were going to lose it because of Iran. So Charlie worked privately behind the scenes to try and push for restraint, for peace. Is there more of a diplomatic option that you could pursue? Ultimately, we know what happened. Trump sent the B-2 bombers. They hit Fordo and some other sites. And Charlie looked straight into the camera. I remember he was on Fox with Jesse Waters at that point. And he said, listen, this is why we work so hard to get President Trump elected. It's because we trust his instincts not to get us into a forever war, not to get us embroiled in another quagmire in the Middle East. And he can do this with precision strikes, and he can do it this way and that way. This is a bigger challenge, admittedly. And, I think about, back to your question, what is it going to take to win? And what are we focused on? I think we have to still, I am completely uncomfortable every day with the fact that there is essentially a regime change or something akin to it, right? If that would be, they've said that would be great if they could get somebody in power that they could work with. I agree. But I do believe that, and again, humility, I don't know exactly where Charlie would be, but I saw the way this played out with Midnight Hammer, that Charlie would have been rooting for our troops in the success of this operation, and he would have been trying to explain why President Trump did what he did, because he's been consistent since the 1980s on Iran.
Yeah.
Because it was consistent for a decade that that Iran could not have a nuclear weapon. And, so he would be focused on messaging a very difficult thing to message on for our base, because there's a whole, anti-interventionist part of our coalition. And we have to be honest about that. And you saw that with Joe Kent's resignation, right? It's just going to continue inflaming this piece. But listen, he would be working on that, and then he would be doing what he would love to do, and that's going on campus. And we've tried to do that with Pick Up the Mic campaign tour that we have going around, I think, dozens and dozens of college campuses all across the country. So we're obviously, nobody is going to do it like Charlie, but we've already seen this massive pickup in social media, and we've got, Nick Freitas who's doing it. We've got Will Witt, I think, did our first one, which was fun. I hadn't seen Will for a long time. But anyway, so we're going to keep doing the campus stuff. We're going to keep putting it on social media and making the conservative case for the future of the country. But also, it's political, right? It's the door knocking. It's to chase the vote. We are hiring hundreds and hundreds of people at Turning Point Action right now to chase ballots in Arizona and Nevada, in New Hampshire. We're trying to build the red wall for 2028 so that the blue wall is now taken out of the way. And because the way the census has gone and population moves, you could, if you take New Hampshire, the blue wall's off the board. They could sweep the northern Midwest, and they still can't win a presidency. So we're working on these things every day. We have to stay focused on working and winning and doing the hard work that pays off in the end. So that's what we're trying to do. That's why we're trying to stay focused on those and not getting embroiled in the feuding and the hot shots. Because ultimately, if we're going to save the country, it's going to happen in quiet ways, in less dramatic ways. It's going to happen when you knock on somebody's door and get them to turn in their ballot. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Let's build some bridges instead of burning them. Sounds good to me.
Amen.
Good to see you, man.
You
All
too,
right.
Dave. Thanks for having me.
If you're looking for thoughtful
Okay.
political
All right. I understand. I understand why people didn't like this interview. I can understand it. Yeah, I totally can see it. Now, is it the worst thing I've ever seen on the planet? By no means or measures. No, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. So I don't think they're damnable, but I want to point out something here. First things first, shout out to the brand new members up in the building. Shout out to Rebecca, of course, became a new member. Shout out to her. And thank you so much, Greg, man, starting this off, man. Appreciate you, brother. With a very kind 10. Greg says this: Charlie was irreplaceable with a single person. And I've said it before, like he was the kindergarten teacher keeping the class in line. And I mean, you can't just remove him without having really 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 people take his place and really responsible for keeping this coalition together. Let me bring this in real quick, though. Shout out again, Greg. Thank you very much for this. There was a comment right here, and I'm going to have to disagree. You've been a member of the channel. I greatly respect you and appreciate you. Here it is right here. I disagree with this comment. TPUSA needs to transition to be a more faith-based organization. That's what the younger generation needs most, the gospel of Jesus Christ. I agree with the second sentence. I disagree vehemently with the first sentence. And I want to make sure, I want to make it very clear why I disagree with that. Because the first sentence, the next generation needs faithful pastors. Please understand, TPUSA is not the replacement for faithful pastors. Faithful pastors were called to preach the gospel. TPUSA, even in all of its good and bad, is still a parachurch ministry at best. It's a political organization. That's really what it is. So we don't need a political organization to replace or take the role of what a church needs to do. Churches need to be doing this job. Now, I do agree 100%. The younger generation needs most the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that should come from their families and churches. A parachurch, a para-political organization does not need to be involved in it whatsoever, in my opinion. Again, because then the point that you're making here about the gospel of Jesus Christ, which I agree, you do realize Mormons have a different gospel. This coalition has a lot of different gospels, And I don't know if we really want to get into that argument about the various different gospels. Remember, Brandon Tatum is in there, and he's a oneness. He disagrees. He denies the deity of Christ. That's a problem. And there's countless other organizations. I mean, Scientology, for crying out loud. Why are Scientologists involved in TPUSA? What gospel would they be preaching? I don't think they need to do that. I think they should probably, maybe, TPUSA, TP Faith needs to encourage churches, but they need to probably get themselves out of that mix and just be a political organization. In my opinion, I don't think that there's room for that, because it's going to be a problem, as we see here. It's a problem right now. So shout out the Gospel of Xenu, right? Like, yeah, it would be some wild stuff. It would be some pretty wild stuff if they became more, quote unquote, religious focused, more faith based, whatever like that. I think it would be more problematic. I mean, they can't even figure out what to do with Tucker Carlson and what he talks about. What they're going to do with somebody gets up there and starts preaching a different gospel, and they already can't even on the most basic. What are they going to do about that? And I don't think they ever should be. Shout out for sure. I honestly never saw TPUSA as a faith-based organization. I just understood Charlie to have faith, and sometimes would express that. Yeah. And I'm fine with them still even expressing it, but I don't think that, Turning Point is not my church. And the funny thing, let me just say this though, because people don't realize this. Charlie, and this might offend some people, Charlie Kirk and TPUSA is not as important on the Christian landscape as people make it sound. It really are not. It really isn't. And I remember asking, I went around my church just kind of doing a little straw poll, right? But so few people knew who Charlie Kirk was before he died. It was crazy. And these are faithful Christians. And so I would go as far as say, hey, do you know what Turning Point USA is? I'd probably say fewer people knew that. So it's not as big a deal as we're making it out to be. The problem is that the dereliction of duty of pastors to preach, that is the biggest issue. That's the biggest issue. I don't think so. That's a good question. I somehow or another I've heard what Andrew, I want to say Andrew professed to be an evangelical. I can't say that emphatically. I don't want to say one way or another. Somebody's gonna jump in the chat and tell me. What do you say here? That's right, Jason. I'm sorry. No, that's right, Jason. TPUSA is a political organization, foremost, right? And you can still, and to me, in my opinion, if Turning Point USA stopped with the Turning Point faith element of it and just worked with churches instead of trying to become like have an arm in churches, I think a great deal of their problems will be solved. But a significant number of problems will be solved. A great number will be solved if they start culling the herd and pulling in some of those tempos. That I really think is the biggest issue. What do you say here? TPUSA is trying to get young people to get involved in politics, right? Which I think is a needful thing to do. Pastors need to get young people into the kingdom of God and give them the gospel. That's what pastors need to do. And I said this morning that I did an episode this morning. I really want to encourage us, the best live chat on the internet, the most electrifying comment section, and the countless other people that are just, we're just out here doing our life. We are middle. We are middle America, right? I really think that the unexpected victory of the midterms will be us getting up and getting out and meeting people and talking to them and having conversations and discussions with real people. I think if we make that our mission, so you know what? I want to go out and tackle some really bad ideas. I don't have to be combative. I don't have to be yelling and spitting and acting all crazy and stuff like that. But I can say, hey, I see that you have this bumper sticker. Or I see you have this sign. Hey, can I ask you a couple questions about it? And just respectfully just ask questions. I do think that we will be the turning point, pun intended, for any kind of doom and gloom that people think is going to happen in the midterms. It's not going to be your elected official that's going to do it. It's not going to be the leadership of TPUSA or the leadership of your quote unquote Republican conservative movement. It's going to be the grunts. It's going to be us going out, shaking hands, kissing babies, having conversations. The more that happens, the more we get up and go out and talk and intermingle with people and actually give voice to the ideas that we have and put a face and a handshake and a smile to the conversations, to the beliefs that we hold, we will see more success. I believe that. And I think that, again, the success of the next election, the success of the future elections, what do they call it? This is the most important election in our lifetime. Yeah, you've said that 8 times before, but really, truly, it's us. If we don't get involved and talk with people and engage with people, we can't expect Turning Point and Andrew Colvin and fill in the blanks to them to do it if we're not willing to do it. Okay, somebody says he professes to be evangelical. Okay. All right, shout out for sure. All right. Yeah, mhm. But you got Mormons in the camp. Like, you got people, again, I don't think that Turning Point needs to do that. I don't think they need to do that. I think they can whittle down their focus, get much more laser focus on, and again, you can still touch on matters that are important. Example being the family, nuclear family, not supporting the deletion of babies. I mean, those are still, those are conservative values, sure. And they definitely find their rooting in the gospel, no question about it. But we're just pointing on the fact that take the gospel and apply it to building a family. Now that the churches have done a significant job of bringing the gospel to bear to young adults, now apply it by speaking out against the deletion of babies. Now apply it to getting rid of hookup culture. Shout it down on your college campus. I mean, that to me, that's the right format. All right. He's trying to do the right thing and honor Charlie's wishes. No problem there. He's just not strong enough, though. 3 people are completely changed since his death. I don't know if Candace has changed since his death. I think Candace really, truly, I don't know about that one, but I'll let you have it. Candace, Megan, and Tucker are not the same anymore. I don't disagree. I just think Candace was like that. I think Candace just took an opportunity or zeroed in her focus on TPUSA because Charlie was gone. But I don't think that change is because of like a real heartfelt change. Okay, let me see. Lots of good conversation. Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like TP faith and the 7 Mountain Mandate is problematic. Yeah. And see, this question alone is the reason why we're in the quagmire we're in today. Because I mean, there will be religious infighting inside of TPUSA by next Tuesday. Because I'm going to say that they should be Reformed Presbyterian and they should be strongly Calvinistic. There you go. We're going to have fights all day. Yeah. See, it's funny though. I mean, that thing is so old. It is so old. The 7 Mountain Mandate. I remember hearing about that when I was in college. Yeah. I think Charlie, and shout out to Adam, been a great supporter of the channel. Charlie's idea was to energize the base of the Republican Party. I think we energize the base by evangelizing the base. The only way that they can play out their Christian faith would be in this party, within this political sphere, because the left are completely opposite. That's why I think it's smarter for TPUSA to get their arms out, encourage faithful pastors to preach the gospel and evangelize, because the only way they're going to apply the application of their faith would be here. They actually make your job easier. I disagree with you on this one. I agree TPUSA should be a faith-based organization. Charlie had a huge impact, but where do Mormons fall in? Where do Catholics fall in? How about Scientologists? I mean, those are some very key groups that operate within the TPUSA under their banner. How do they work together? I mean, you have an organization that believes that you can become a god. But you have a faith system that believes that you become a god. You have another one that believes that, that science is God. How does that work? I mean, that's just it alone. I don't know where. I don't know how that works out. Let me see real quick. Yeah, and I think the base can be energized. You can make America great again just by making marriage great again, making families great again. Where can you go? What organization, what political party would you go to if you wanted to experience somebody to encourage you for a man to marry a woman and them to have little people and grow old together? Where would you go? Make marriage great again. I'm personally, I believe TPUSA's job would be significantly less difficult if pastors just preach the gospel. Well, thank you, friend. I appreciate it. Okay. I'm sorry. It was something I was supposed to. I'm over here looking for something. Somebody told me something. I'm looking for it. Please forgive me for being distracted. All right, what do we have here? Charlie Kirk. I had this ready. I actually have this one ready. I'll pull this in. I'll work on that ahead of time. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I had it ready in my playlist, but I'll pull it up now. This is Charlie Kirk on the evening of whether or not U.S. is going to bomb Iran. So let me pull it in. Let's just tease it out. Let's go.
Iran and potentially the United States. Right now, there is a mass mobilization underway of U.S. aircraft and the USS Nimitz into the Middle East to be prepared. In fact, the president right now, President of the United States, President Trump, is sending up some very spicy Truth Social posts. He says, quote, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out. Kill." I love that. At least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then President Trump says two words in all caps: unconditional surrender. For 10 years, President Donald Trump has said that Iran should not get a nuclear weapon. For 10 years, he has been consistent about this. And so now President Trump is left with a choice. Israel has done a lot of work in Iran. They have bombed a lot of targets, but there are some nuclear facilities where the weaponry is hidden within a mountain. It is within a deep, deep bunker. And it would potentially require U.S. involvement or what's called bunker busting bombs, otherwise brokered by B-52 or American bombers. Now, in situations like this, it's important to understand that we do not know all the facts or the circumstances or the elements surrounding this. President Donald Trump has to make a very important decision. Does the United States get involved kinetically against Iran? So what would this look like? If the United States were to get involved with Iran, you can see all public reports. It looks like there is a mobilization to the region. America bombing Iran would be a direct escalation. Now, it would not be the same as bombing their oil fields or even bombing the supreme leader. The most basic action would be drop a bunker buster on their underground nuclear plant. And some people claim that's the only thing we have to do. But the cautionary tale that I would say both privately and publicly, and I'm going to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, and I will say this on the show, and I'll say this to anyone that will listen. It's very hard to stop a war when you want, and it's hard to stop a war once you're in the midst of a war. So let's say that the United States bombs Fordo with bunker-busting bombs, and Iran getting a nuclear weapon, not good. No one wants that. You can see how it's changed the geopolitical calculus when North Korea has a nuclear weapon. It makes us treat North Korea in a way that we otherwise would not treat it. We have to put more time, attention, detail, troops, intelligence. What otherwise would be a third world country, the fact they have a nuclear weapon, we have to take them far more seriously. If we were to bomb Fordo, Iran would likely and probably consider this to be an act of war. Would they respond and try to target U.S. bases? Would they try and target U.S. troops? Would they activate sleeper cells within the interior of the United States? These are all things that President Trump has to factor in. On the other side, President Donald Trump has said, I will not allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon because he has said when crazy people have weapons of unthinkable violence, you have to deal in reality. The longer I live, the more I realize that puritanical, ideological approaches to situations like this are not helpful. On one side is the Lindsey Graham, John Bolton types, where they are actively calling for regime change. Can we play the tape of Lindsey Graham yesterday, who's just, quite honestly, just making a lunatic of himself? It just looks like a lunatic on. Time for us to close the chapter on the mullahs and the Ayatollah. So let me first just paint to you the two extremes, and then also let you know that's actually not how life works. And Donald Trump is actually rejecting both extremes. Here is Lindsey Graham. This is just lunacy. This kind of analysis is not helpful. This kind of approach, this kind of argument, it has nothing to do with nuclear weapons at this point. This is now that we want to go all in and take out the regime. It's time for us to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen and start a new chapter in the Middle East. And that sounds good, doesn't it? But what have we learned when it comes to wars, and especially wars in the Middle East? What you draw up on a whiteboard rarely happens. What you think theoretically is going to occur, there might be unintended and unforeseen consequences, especially when you're talking about a country 2.5 times the size of Texas. It has 90 million people and was an ancient and great power with well over a dozen ethnic groups. If your portfolio is over $250,000 and you aren't hedged, you are sitting on a ticking time bomb. Markets are at all-time highs, but history shows, you know what comes next. Volatile coin and protect your portfolio today. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. You have underground Christians. You don't really have many Jews left in Persia, but also you have secular younger Persians. Who's going to run the country exactly, Lindsey Graham? This sounds like Hillary Rodham Clinton in Libya. So I'm pointing to the first extreme right now, the neoconservative extreme. We must go take off the head of the snake right now. And Donald Trump is doing a phenomenal job of resisting these calls for regime change. He's playing around with it on Truth Social, as he should rhetorically. President Trump should rhetorically taunt and rhetorically threaten regime change. Absolutely, he should engage in information warfare. Play cut 285.
Be all in, President Trump, in helping Israel eliminate the nuclear threat. If we need to provide bombs to Israel, provide bombs. If we need to fly planes with Israel, do joint operations. But here's the bigger question. Wouldn't the world be better off if the Ayatollahs went away and replaced by something better? Wouldn't Iran be better off? It's time to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen. Let's close that chapter soon and start a new chapter in the Mideast, one of tolerance, hope, and peace.
Okay, that sounds good, but that's pathologically insane. I'm sorry, it is. How do you know it's going to be better? Yeah, the Ayatollah is awful, but maybe he's one of the few guys that can keep that country together and not have a 90 million person civil war. Lindsey Graham is so consistently out of his mind, it's hard to even comprehend. Iran is hugely diverse. It is a massive country. Do the people agitating for war even know that? Because be clear, regime change is war. Just to understand, regime change is not like changing the head coach at the Chicago Bears. It's not how it works. Oh, we're going to bring a new head coach. I think that some people think that it's as easy in like sports terms. Oh, we're just, okay, Nick Saban is gone. We're going to go bring in the coach from University of Washington. Sorry, Andrew. Oh, okay. Mario Cristobal left the University of Oregon. We're going to go bring in Dan Lanning, which actually ended up being very good regime change. It doesn't work that way. It's not like a clean transfer. Typically in the Mideast, it's very messy, creates a quagmire, and then there is civil war. Do you understand how large Iran is? It's massive. It's a very big country. It's mountainous. It makes Afghanistan and Iraq look like a cakewalk. Just look at this beast of a country with all the different regions, all the different dialects. If we could put that up on screen. And then you have a major refugee concern of Mohammedans that will come to Europe and endanger more Christians and Jews, and Mohammedans that will come to America. No, that is wrong. So that is one extreme. Now, Donald Trump rejects that, and he says, no, I don't want regime change. He's never ran on regime change. He doesn't believe in regime change. He is resistant to that. But there is another extreme. There is another extreme, and I get the temptation to be in the other extreme. I actually agree with a lot of this other extreme, a lot. I think it's healthy to have this other extreme more than the neoconservative extreme because this extreme has been underrepresented in the public dialogue and discourse the last 20 years. The other extreme is one that I have deep respect and reverence for because I actually think if we had that other extreme, we would not have invaded Iraq. This other extreme is philosophically important. It's important to consider, and that's the Ron Paul extreme. And I love Ron Paul. Ron Paul is awesome. I would have Ron Paul on the show regularly. He is a hero because Ron Paul had the courage to challenge old sacred cows of the Republican Party. He made people defend the indefensible. But the Ron Paul perspective is strictly isolationist. He would say, who cares if oil goes to $140 a barrel? That's not our role. We don't need to police the Strait of Hormuz. It doesn't matter if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. Kind of fortress America, fortify it, and let the rest of the world do what it wants to do. Sounds good, but it doesn't work as the American economy is actually largely dependent on intertwined global trade. You don't have to like it. It's the way it is. I'm going to keep on building up these two extremes because President Donald Trump actually finds himself in the arithmetic mean and a very prudent middle to weigh both options. He is not an isolationist nor a neocon. He's an American patriot. So you have these two extremes. I honestly don't think the neoconservative extreme needs to be represented philosophically anymore. It's uninteresting to me. They've done a mess of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, the entire Middle East, Ukraine. We know what the neoconservatives believe. I do think hearing out, and honestly, I agree with a lot of the more, I think isolationist is used as a pejorative, but let's just say restrained community. But it doesn't matter what Charlie Kirk believes. It's actually not that relevant. Let me tell you what President Trump has in front of him. And this is the stuff of which statesmen are made. A statesman is a man at the highest moment when you have the weight of the shoulders, like Churchill or Lincoln, of the world on your shoulders. You act with prudence and not on ideological fervor. President Donald Trump is a man made for this moment. This is why President Trump was elected president of the United States.
Okay.
So on one side, he's getting phone calls from Lindsey Graham. Mr. President, we need to invade Iran and liberate the mullahs. Wrong. Like that's a non-starter. I'm sorry, George W. Bush, that was an administration ender for George W. Bush. And the more that we remind people about Iraq and Afghanistan, I actually think it allows us towards a healthy way of viewing what's happening in Iran. And then the other side, which is the online MAGA base, especially the younger MAGA base, is very against U.S. involvement in Iran. And I understand it. I share it. I get it. I totally understand it. We've known nothing but quagmire, lies, deception, intel agencies that have spied on Trump, intel agencies that lied about weapons of mass destruction, intel agencies that misled us about Libya, intel agencies that led us about almost every single corner of the region. We took an online poll. 90% of our audience and 400,000 people voted were against the United States getting involved in a war in Iran. President Donald Trump has been saying this for nearly 10 years. Here's a montage of President Trump saying Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. Play cut 315.
You cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. You cannot let it happen because bad things will happen if that happens. But everybody stopped. They were ready to make a deal. We would have made a deal that was great for everybody. No nuclear weapons. You can't give them nuclear weapons. Now they're going to have a nuclear weapon. But I wanted to make a deal with them. No nuclear weapons. You can't have nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are the single greatest threat to this world, to the whole world. And Viktor Orban understands that, and some others do too. I just didn't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I said, you know, we're going to make a great deal. Everybody's going to be happy. You're going to be rich as hell again. Everything's going to be great. But you cannot have a nuclear weapon.
You can't let Iran have nuclear weapons.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
And that's just a short little taste of what he's been saying for 10 years. It's the man in the arena that counts. It's easy to lob criticisms, easy to say, oh, why is it you are even mobilizing the USS Nimitz, and we have no idea how this is going to work out. But I encourage you, as you view the next couple of days, to not view things overly ideological. In fact, we should resist ideological fervor, saying, oh, take out the oil fields. No one wants poverty for the Iranian people. You take out the oil fields, get ready for $180 a barrel gas, a lot of Iranians starting to starve, and potentially an Iranian civil war. Take out the Ayatollah. Resist that temptation. That's not prudence. That's not self-control. That's something else talking. That's a zeal. And that very same zeal got us involved in a pile of garbage in Iraq. It all felt good with shock and awe in March of 2003. We're unstoppable. We're going to take Iraq in a weekend. Turns out it didn't work that way. A lot of people died. A lot of Americans died unnecessarily. And so President Donald Trump finds himself in the decision-making chair. President Donald Trump, 10 years ago, said two things.
What did he say?
And he ran on it. Not just recently, but he ran on it for a decade. And both these things can simultaneously be true only thanks to the realpolitik approach of President Donald Trump and the MAGA agenda, a book that I wrote. These two things he said 10 years ago. Iraq war was a bloody catastrophe and a disaster, and it will never happen again, and Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. Only President Donald Trump can hold both those things in his hands. Only President Trump, with prudence and practicality and wisdom, is able to weigh them both, thread the needle, and walk the tightrope. President Donald Trump is a man made for this moment, and we should trust him. Let's do some updates about...
Okay. All right. What do y'all think? Tell me what you think. What do you think? All right. I appreciate it. That was good. I mean, geopolitical stories are very complicated. A lot of moving pieces. It's hard to wrap your mind around a country twice the size of Texas and 90 million people. I got you. All that. I agree 100%. And there are some complexities that probably need to be played out. I don't know what not trusting the president does. That's what I don't get. So I'm right there with you. Because a lot of people that are up hot and bothered about what's going on in Iran don't know anything about what's going on in their own communities, which seems to be like, well, do you have the same heat for your city council? Are you checking up what's going on in your city hall? Are you that aware about what's going on in your HOA? Now, these are really small, but they should be the things that you're most impressed by, that you're most involved in. You're worrying about, again, something going on multiple time zones away. Not saying it's not important, but is multiple time zones away. Why are you not worried about those things that are nearby as much as you are those? And that to me just seems interesting, but shout out for sure. Okay, let me go over here. First things first, thank you so much to the stream sponsor. Appreciate you, Mike. What did he say with this 20? Very kind. He says this: I agree with you, the TP USA. However, TP faith was unknown until Candace brought hell to it. I can give you that. I don't know if necessarily, because that's fair. That's fair. That organization was more behind the scenes and involved with churches around the chapters. They came in after Charlie Kirk's visits to colleges. Okay. And I maybe that will remain, but I think the heavy lifting of energizing the base through the gospel should be the churches in those communities. And like even my church, we are working on, as students get ready to graduate, connecting with, and we know that they're going to go to college or whatnot of that nature, connecting with churches in that area and maybe having a representative from the church come to our church to introduce him or herself to the community, to our church, and to the students that'll be going to the college that feeds to that church. So there's an easy transition again, so that they're connected with somebody. And again, I'm not saying that Turning Point shouldn't do those things and shouldn't do the things that it's doing politically, but I do think the heavy lifting needs to be done by the church, in my opinion. Now here, of course, here we go. You have all kinds of pastors now too, gay ones, Jesus denying ones, and all that. And that's why I keep saying faithful pastors. I'm not talking about phony, false, and fake churches. I'm not doing that. I'm talking about real churches. Now, guess what? There are cults on college campuses. There are phony, false, and fake churches that come to college campuses all the time. And your child, your student, your niece, nephew, whatever, is going to be dealt with or have to combat with these cults. So, but there are faithful churches too, just like there are faithful churches in everywhere else. So I don't think that would be my wash my hands type of situation. This is a good one right here. And I thought this was good. Thank you so much, Adam. He says, I've never heard of the 7 mountain mandate. Jason, could you please enlighten me on this? You can go to Fighting for the Faith. And I meant to pull up a video because Fighting for the Faith has done some great breakdowns of this. It's a very simple concept, though it's not biblical at all. Hold on. Let me just, because I should have looked it up while I was, it's a concept that Christians, in order for Christ to return, Christians need to secure leadership positions within 7 particular mountains, or what they call spheres of influence.
What is
so let me bring this in because this will do a much better job. So I did find a good video, by the way. So shout out Adam. Appreciate you, Adam. Real quick. Here we go.
What is the 7 Mountain Mandate? We're going to answer that question, and you can also discover more on GotQuestions.org. The 7 Mountain Mandate is a strategy for evangelizing the modern world and enlarging Christ's kingdom. Gaining a following with charismatics and Pentecostals, the belief holds that the best way for the church to be effective is to bring change in the 7 major spheres of influence today. These 7 sectors of society are thought to mold the way everyone thinks and behaves. So to tackle societal change, these 7 mountains must be transformed. Followers speak of occupying the mountains, invading the culture, and transforming or taking back society. Some teachers of the Seven Mountain Mandate use Isaiah 2:2, which mentions mountains and the last days, to support their view. Others try to find a correspondence with the seven kingdoms Israel was to drive out of Canaan. Lance Wallnau coined the term Seven Mountain Mandate and is one of its prominent teachers. Wallnau adapts the missionary mandate of Jesus to go and make disciples into a mandate to effect social transformation. He reasons that since churches already have a presence in every nation in the world, we need now to concentrate on influencing the systems within these nations. The problem, according to Wallnau, is that Christians are not currently influencing society outside the church. Wallnau's teaching is loosely based on the Abrahamic covenant and God's promise that Israel would be the head and not the tail among the nations. Proponents of the Seven Mountain Mandate infer that the church, not Israel, is the entity to claim that promise. It is now up to the individual Christian to position themselves to exert the greatest amount of influence over the mountain they're called to lead. Christians are called to be light and salt in the world. It's true that the church should seek to share Jesus and to influence culture. As a result, society will be impacted. Evil men claimed Paul and Silas had turned the world upside down by bringing the gospel to Thessalonica. Overturning wicked systems and advancing God's truth should be something every believer prays for and works toward. We need more believers involved in the arts, business, government, media, etc. The message of the gospel must permeate everywhere, and the Seven Mountain Mandate is a strategy that makes sense on one level. The people wielding the most influence today are, for the most part, ungodly people who do not follow God's word. Influence the influencers, and you can change the world. Become an influencer yourself, and you can bring change that much more quickly. One caveat to the Seven Mountain Mandate is that the Lord may do his work any way he sees fit. We have no direct command in Scripture to seek positions of influence in society, only to make disciples and be witnesses. God may use anyone, regardless of how high on the mountain he or she is. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. God chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things, and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are, so that no one may boast before him. Another caution is that the Seven Mountain Mandate traces its origins to visions certain men had, and the strategy is heavily promoted by quote-unquote apostles in the New Apostolic Reformation. Further, the Seven Mountain Mandate sometimes drifts into the realm of dominion theology, the belief that God desires Christians to rise to power and govern the nation according to biblical precepts. We need Christian professors, lawyers, CEOs, drill sergeants, newscasters, coaches, painters, chefs, gardeners, actors, handymen. The list goes on. The church should engage with the world, and all professions need a gospel witness. Whatever we do, we should work at it with all our heart as working for the Lord. And we trust that Jesus will continue to build his church. That answers the question, what is the Seven Mountain Mandate? On our website, gotquestions.org, you'll find a deeper discussion and recommended resources. If this helped you, give us a thumbs up and click subscribe. Meanwhile, if you'd like to study more, click that bell and check out these other questions.
All right, there you go. Did that help, Adam? I hope that helped out. I didn't want to go long on it, and I felt like this was probably better put together than me rambling about it, but that is it. All right. You would think so, but again, it's totally a man-made up idea that doesn't have its, again, they had this idea and then they inserted scripture into it to find it, because they didn't get this from scripture. If you just gave this a Bible to somebody, they wouldn't just come up natively with the Seven Mountain Mandate. They would get it because it was something that they inserted into scripture. Okay, what we got? There's some good conversation in here. Absolutely. What's going on? I see you, Amethyst. Good to see you, sister. Grace and peace to you. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. There's a lot of good stuff going on. I had a lot of good conversation going on in here. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Just reading through, making sure. I'll put this up here for y'all so y'all can see. Looks like some good conversation, and which I appreciate it for sure. And by the way, here's the link to that if you would, if you want to check this out. It's on Got Questions, a very great YouTube channel that just answers questions. I mean, that's technically what it is. I mean, and I wouldn't say it is. It definitely has tendencies, and your vibes, your spidey senses are correct. All right. Oh no, I agree. The dominion theology idea that we must take over arts and entertainment and government and politics and fill in the blank education, we must take them over and finance in order for Jesus Christ to return. Like if we don't take over and we're not ruling and reigning over those areas, Jesus won't come back. Like that's crazy work. I mean, that's some crazy work. Oh my gosh, what do we have? What do we have? I don't know. It seemed like somebody, we were having a conversation about whether or not Tyler Boyer was a Mormon. Tyler Boyer is a Mormon. I feel like people kind of missed that part, or maybe they forgot it. I don't know. Okay, I'm looking through a lot of good conversation, good back and forth, all that kind of good jazz. What do we got? I see you. I see you. Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, there was a good video of Marco Rubio. Where was it? Hold on. Because somebody sent it to me, so it's kind of out of my, it's not on my list, and I got to, augment my little playlist that I was going to do today. Okay, yes, here it is right here. Marco Rubio, going back, what was this, back in 2015? What he said about Iran back in 2015. So I can bring this in very quickly, and then we might look at if there's anybody that I need to. I don't see anybody. I've put it out to a couple people that disagreed with me about various and sundry, and they have not tapped in, so it's okay. But if so, let me know. Moderators, please give my attention to it. Let me pull this in. Let's see what Marco's talking about. This is a young Marco. Look at him.
Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, but they will target us. They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that point they will know that they have become immune. And then they become an established nuclear weapons power. History will condemn us for not doing what needed to be done at this critical moment in the world's history.
An old clip of U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking about Iran on the floor of Senate is being widely shared, and he is being hailed as prescient. Rubio, then a senator representing Florida, warned against the Iranian nuclear deal negotiated by Barack Obama's administration.
I think everything that needs to be said about the details of this deal have already been said. I do want to be recorded for history's purposes before I know what was going to happen in regards to this if it goes through. Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, and it will raise the price of us operating in the region. They're going to build anti-access capabilities, rockets capable of destroying our aircraft carriers and ships. Continue to build these swift boats that are able to come on us, these fast boats that are able to swarm our naval assets. And they'll make it harder and harder for U.S. troops to be in the region. They'll also work with other terrorist groups in the region to target American servicemen and women. And they may or may not deny that they're involved, but they will target us and raise the price of our presence in the Middle East until they hope to completely pull us out of that region. They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. Those are not affected by this deal, and they'll continue to build them as they've been doing. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that point they will know that they have become immune, that we will no longer be able to strike their nuclear program because the price of doing so will be too high. This is not just a work of imagination. It exists in the world today. It's called North Korea, where a lunatic possesses dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range rocket that can already reach the United States. And we cannot do anything about it. An attack on North Korea today would result in an attack on Tokyo, or Seoul, or Guam, or Hawaii, or California. And so the world must now live with a lunatic in possession of nuclear weapons. And this is the goal Iran has as well, to reach a point where they become immune to any sort of credible military threat because the price of a military strike would be too high. And then they become an established nuclear weapons power. And never in the history of the world has such a regime ever possessed weapons so capable of destruction. Iran is led by a supreme leader who is a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future. He is not a traditional geopolitical actor who makes decisions on the basis of borders or simply history or because of ambitions. He has an religious apocalyptic vision of the future, one that calls for triggering a conflict between the non-Muslim world and the Muslim world, one that he feels especially obligated to trigger. And he's going to possess nuclear weapons. This is the world that we are on the verge of leaving our children to inherit. And perhaps we ourselves will have to share in it. And so I want to be recorded for history's purposes, if nothing else, to say that those of us who opposed this deal understood where it would lead. And we are making a terrible mistake. And I fear that a passage of this deal will make it even harder for us to prevent it. And I hope that there is still time to change our minds. But here's the good news. Iran may have a supreme leader, but America does not. In this nation, we have a republic, and soon we will have new leaders, perhaps in this chamber, but also in the executive branch. And I pray that on their first day in office, they will reverse this deal and reimpose the sanctions and back them up with a credible threat of military force, or history will condemn us for not doing what needed to be done at this critical moment in the world's history.
Prior to this speech, then Senator Marco Rubio also delivered remarks on the floor of the U.S. Senate, urging passage of the Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act of 2015.
I wanted to come to the floor today to speak about the risk that Iran poses to the world and as a result, the legislation that's before the Senate at this moment. A lot's been talked about in the media over the last months, years, quite frankly, about the notion that we're going to work out a deal with Iran that will prevent war. Sadly, I believe that the direction this deal is headed almost guarantees war. At some point, certainly in our lifetime, but maybe before the end of the decade. Let me back up and first describe what the issue is at hand. The issue at hand is that Iran, run by a radical Shia cleric, its government, I should say, its people, perhaps don't partake in this thought process, but its government, whose head and supreme decision maker is a radical Shia cleric, has made two decisions. The first is they feel it is their obligation to export their Islamic revolution everywhere in the world, and of course it begins with the Middle East. And two, they've decided they want to become the hegemonic power in the region. They want to become the dominant nation, the dominant movement in the Middle East and in that entire region. So how do you achieve that? Well, first it requires you to drive the Americans out of the area, which is why we've seen them invest in all sorts of asymmetrical capabilities like these little small swarm boats that they use to sometimes harass U.S. naval vessels. That's why you see them just a week ago basically hijack a commercial vessel on the international waters. The second thing they do is they sponsor terrorism. They have all these proxy groups in all these countries in the region that are doing their bidding. That's also asymmetrical warfare. Asymmetrical meaning it's not frontal, it's using some non-traditional method to expand their power or to show their power. So they use these proxy groups like Hezbollah, or now with the group, the Houthis, that they're involved with in Yemen and in other parts of the world. And the threat is that if you attack Iran, these terrorist groups will attack you. And in fact, we have seen the hand of the Iranian government in terrorist attacks. For example, we saw an attempt to assassinate the ambassador of Saudi Arabia here in Washington, D.C. We know that in 1994, there was a bombing in Buenos Aires that was linked to Iran. So they sponsor terrorism. But the third aspect of their desire to become the hegemonic regional power is a nuclear weapon. What do you need to acquire a nuclear weapon? You need three things. The first thing you need is a bomb design. And the truth is you can buy a bomb design. The second thing you need is a delivery system, an ability to deliver the weapon, whether it's on an airplane or on a missile. And that is why Iran is developing long-range rockets. They're expending a lot of money, despite all the sanctions that are on them, they're expending a lot of money to build these long-range rockets. That isn't for some sort of fancy fireworks show. It isn't to put a man on the moon. They're building these long-range rockets because they understand that is the second critical component of a nuclear weapons program. And the third thing is you have to be able to get your hands on enriched uranium or reprocessed plutonium. And no one in the world is going to import to them weapons-grade uranium or plutonium. So they've decided to build the infrastructure to do it themselves. And they do it the way North Korea did it. They do it the way other nations have done it when they try to hide their program. They do it by claiming that they have a peaceful nuclear program that they're trying to build. In essence, their argument is, we don't want to build a weapon. We're just trying to build nuclear reactors so we can provide electricity. It makes no sense for two reasons. The first is this is an oil-rich country. They don't really need nuclear energy in order to provide cost-effective energy for their country. But the other is it costs so much money to build the equipment to enrich and reprocess. They could just buy it, already reprocessed or enriched, and ship it. Bring it into the country the way South Korea does, the way other nations do. So if it would be cheaper to bring these things in by simply importing it, as opposed to having to spend all this money enriching and reprocessing themselves, why are they spending all this money on the infrastructure? And the answer is because at some point in the future, they know they're going to want a nuclear weapon. Now, perhaps they haven't made the decision they need it today or next week or next year. But they certainly, at a minimum, want to have the option to be a threshold nuclear power. And I believe, knowing everything we know about them, both open source and classified, that whether they've decided or not to build a nuclear weapon, they will decide to build a nuclear weapon because it provides for them the sort of regime stability they crave. The radical Shia cleric that heads that country, he looks at North Korea and he looks at Libya. And he says, Libya is what happens when you don't have a nuclear capability. North Korea is what happens when you do. Muammar Gaddafi is dead and out of power. But North Korea is still run by that madman. Why? Because he has a nuclear weapon. You can't invade him or touch him because of what he'll do in response. And I think they're guided by that principle. They're guided by the principle that they want to be the regional hegemonic power, and nuclear weapons gives them that role. And they're guided by a third, equally sinister motivation, and that is the open and repeatedly stated desire to destroy the state of Israel, to wipe it off the face of the earth. They haven't said this once in passing. The supreme leader of Iran has said this on hundreds of occasions. In fact, every Friday in Iran, in government-sanctioned religious events, they chant death to America and death to Israel. And if there's one lesson of history is that when a leader or a nation repeatedly says, we are going to kill you, you should take that seriously. And when the nation that says we are going to kill you is using its governmental money to sponsor terrorism, you should take that even more seriously. And when the nation that's going around saying we're going to kill you and wipe you off the face of the earth is reprocessing plutonium or enriching uranium, you have a right to be extremely scared. The world understood this 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and so it imposed UN Security Council sanctions on Iran, international sanctions. They were not easy to put together. A lot of those countries in Europe have companies that, in those countries that were dying to do business in Iran. They didn't want these sanctions, but they did them. They were in place. And then about a year and a half or two, the president decided it's time to try to open up to Iran and see if we can work a deal out with them. And look, in normal circumstances, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Two countries who have a disagreement on some issue, you can work things out. There's a place for diplomacy in the world. The problem is that the issue we have with Iran is not based on a grievance. They're not mad that we did something, and so that's why they're acquiring a nuclear weapon. And if only we stopped doing what it is that aggrieved them, they would go away. This is not a grievance-based problem. This is an ideological problem. Because if you read the founding documents of the Islamic Republic, it doesn't describe the supreme leader as the leader of Iran. Iran, it happens to be the country they operate from. It describes them as the supreme leader of all Muslims in the world. And that is why they believe that it is their goal, it is their mandate, it is their calling to export their revolution to every corner of the planet, but beginning in the Middle East. And a nuclear weapon capability would give them leverage in carrying out that goal that they have. And in their mind, nothing would be more glorious than the destruction of the Jewish state. So the president enters these negotiations, and it has been a process of constant appeasement. Moment after moment, we went from saying no enriching and reprocessing to you can enrich and reprocess at 5% to you can enrich up to 20% for research purposes. We went from saying no enrichment ever to saying in 10 or 15 years, all bets are off. And there's still items in the negotiation that are not clear. You know, the White House put out a fact sheet. They put out a piece of paper and they said, this is what we agreed to. And Iran put out a piece of paper just like it, except it sounded like a totally different deal. For example, the US fact sheet said that sanctions on Iran would not come off until Iran complied. But Iran's fact sheet said, no, sanctions come off immediately. And now when you press the White House on it, they refuse to say that in fact it will be phased, not immediate. That's why I filed an amendment. And even though I think that the president's deal as outlined in the fact sheet was not good enough, I filed an amendment to at least hold them to that. And the amendment to this bill read very simply. It just said that whatever deal the president crafts has to reflect the fact sheet that he provided the Senate. But we couldn't get a vote on it. And the other amendment I filed is that any deal with Iran should be conditioned on Iran recognizing Israel's right to exist. And here's why that was so important. That was so important because this is not just about the nuclear program. The deal the president is trying to sign is about removing sanctions, meaning money is now going to flow back into the Iranian government's coffers. What are they going to do with this money? Are they going to build roads, hospitals? Are they going to donate to charity? No. Are they going to buy food and medicine for people that are hurting around the world, the hundreds of thousands that have been displaced by Assad, their puppet? No. They're going to use that money to sponsor terrorism. And the prime target of the terrorism they sponsor is the state of Israel. We couldn't get a vote on that amendment either. Apparently there are senators terrified of voting against that amendment, so they'd rather not have a vote at all. And so I am deeply disappointed by the direction this debate has taken, because I felt and I understand that this deal was carefully crafted. I'm on the committee that passed it. But I also understand that every member of the Senate has a right to be heard on this debate. And unfortunately, only a couple of amendments were allowed to be voted on, and no one else had an opportunity to get their amendments voted on, amendments that I thought would have made this bill much more meaningful. But now we've reached this point where the majority leader has filed cloture on the bill because it's time to move on to these other issues, and I respect that. And we have to make a decision. And the decision is not whether we're going to pass the bill we want or nothing at all. The decision is, are we better off as a country with this bill or with no bill? If we don't pass a bill, the Senate can still weigh in on the Iranian deal, but the Iranian deal kicks in immediately. And until the Senate acts, the sanctions will be off, at least the US sanctions will be off. There's also no guarantee that the White House will even show us the agreement if we don't pass a bill. If we pass a bill, it delays the sanctions being lifted for a period of time. It requires the White House to submit the deal to us so we can review it. And ultimately, it calls for a vote, up or down, on approving the deal or not. It actually requires that vote will have to happen. And there can't be any procedural process to impede it for the most part. So at the end of the day, while this bill does not contain the amendments, we didn't even get a vote on the amendments that we wanted. It doesn't contain the different aspects that I thought it would do to make it stronger. If left with the choice that we have now, I don't think there's any doubt that we're in a better position if this bill passes. Because at a minimum, at least it creates a process whereby the American people, through their elected representatives, can debate an issue of extraordinary importance. If I'm troubled by anything, is that while this issue gets a lot of coverage, I'm not sure the coverage accurately reflects what a critical moment this is. I said at the outset that I think a bad deal almost guarantees war, and here's why. Because the state of Israel, such an important ally to the United States, they're not thousands of miles away from Iran. Put yourself in their position for a moment. The small country with a small population, 9 miles wide at its narrowest point, with a neighbor to the north that openly and repeatedly says it wants to destroy you and on the verge of acquiring a nuclear capability. And Israel feels like their very existence is being threatened. And faced with that, Israel may very well take military action on their own to protect themselves. I think a bad deal exponentially increases the likelihood of that happening. I also think you look at the other nations of the region, because Iran is a Shia country, a Shia Persian country, but its Sunni Arab neighbors aren't big fans of the Shia branch of Islam. So for example, Saudi Arabia, an incredibly wealthy country, they have already said whatever Iran gets, we're going to get.
Oh.
If Iran gets the right to enrich and reprocess, we will enrich and reprocess.
Oh.
If Iran builds a weapon, we will build a weapon. And so it creates the very real specter that we're going to have an arms race, a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. You're talking about a region of the world that has been unstable for 3,800 years.
Senator's time has expired.
I ask unanimous consent for 30 seconds that I may conclude.
Is there objection? Without objection.
You talk about a region of the world that could have a nuclear arms race, one of the most unstable regions on the planet. And so I hope we're going to get a good deal. I'm not hopeful that we will, but I think we're better off if we have this process in place. And so I hope this bill passes here today so that at least we'll have a chance to weigh in on an issue of critical importance.
All right. Okay. That was, you know, wherever this goes, I think Rubio, speech-wise, I want to hear more Rubio speaking. I think his speech, that was actually very well done, both of those. So shout out for sure. It's definitely more complex than what we've made it out to be. But, you know, I do think we're more than likely doing the right thing. So, okay, I can rock with that. A non-American worried about abroad. This is anti-American. Okay. All right. Shout out. Man, that was a good one. Thank y'all so much for that. I appreciate it. All right, what we have here. Ran across a couple of questions here. Shout out. I disagree with Charlie Kirk. We need to take out the regime. Okay, I'm with you. I just wonder what could we have come up with a better way to do it? But I would love to have seen like what are the 10 different ways that we could have solved this problem. Not saying I would have changed it, but I just would have liked to see that. But thank you, Phantom, for the 2. Charlie Kirk was not God. He was not always right. And I do think that's kind of what I'm saying. Thank you so much for that. And the 2, Phantom, I'm saying that especially when people keep referring back to Charlie, like, well, what would Charlie Kirk do? Well, Charlie's not ultimate. Like, come on. He had flaws too. Intel agencies did not lie about the weapons of mass destruction. Thank you, Phantom. And that was back on the Rubio video, the first part of it. Thank you so much for that too. And then what do you say here, Adam? Does the chat think that President Trump would have still strike Iran if Charlie was still alive? I think so. I don't think Charlie. Thank you so much for the 5. Charlie Kirk, I don't think was like holding back the hands of Trump. That's crazy work. Like, oh, Trump, don't do this. I'm holding your hand back. I don't think that was the case at all. I think what probably sadly would have happened is we might not have moved because we had a lot of people around us or he had a lot of people around him that we didn't know it until post Charlie Kirk were really wilding out. So what I miss here? See something on here. Okay, let me just real quick. All right, there we go. Got it. Okay. Y'all, thank y'all so much. I appreciate that question. It's embarrassing. Don't ask that anymore. What? But what happened? That question was embarrassing. Don't ask that anymore. My goodness. What happened? Okay. I don't know what I missed. I feel like I missed something though. But y'all, thank y'all so much, everybody. I appreciate it. It's 7:30. This was our Thankful Thursday. Tomorrow we're doing body cam. And hold on, did I see something? Tomorrow we'll be doing that good old body cam. We got some good body cam for you tomorrow. We got some thoughtful ones tomorrow because I have two of them that we've never seen. Two that we've never seen before. Let me just say it like that. I don't want to give it away yet. American stance is not to negotiate with terrorists, which the IRGC is. They funded the IED used in Al Qaeda and ISIS during the Gulf War of the Great War of, I forgot what GWT, that cost as many U.S. soldiers their lives. Thank you, friend. A lot of good commentary back and forth. I think we're good to go up in here. Yeah, we got to get old body cam stuff for sure. Global war on terrorists. Thank you, friend. I thought about it afterwards. I was like, I think that's on terrorism. But everybody, I want to say thank you again, everybody. I appreciate y'all tapping in. My goal is to hop back in here tomorrow. I got it, and I'm pensive because again, my mom has pre-op for her shoulder surgery on Tuesday. We have to take her to the doctor tomorrow, and she actually hasn't told me when we are. So it's supposed to be in the morning. So hopefully everything will be done. And I've picked up. Let me just check real quick. She hasn't replied back. And I've picked up my daughter and be over here by the normal time. So, but I'll make sure I'll put up the thumbnail and all that. The live stream announcement will go up soon enough. So you all will know about that well before time. But thank y'all so much to everybody. I really appreciate y'all tapping in and all of that. It has been a busy, busy night. It has been a good one. But we had some good Charlie Kirk debates. We had some good dismantling of critical race theory and all that kind of stuff. And then we jumped into some politics, which I think was necessary. We saw Andrew Colvett discuss Tucker Carlson, which I thought it shed some more light. And not just Tucker Carlson, but other things as well. It did shed some light. And I think that does help out a lot for us. I know that they are. Graham Allen's fighting back on it as well. Okay, yeah. Got it. Okay. There's a lot of side conversation, which I'm always happy about. Always appreciate it though. Just looking through real quick. But like I said, tomorrow, Lord willing, 5 o'clock ish. I said 5 o'clock should probably be reasonable. 5 o'clock tomorrow, we'll be back at this, jumping on this thing, having some good time, just doing some body cam. So we'll do some great Friday Night Lights, just some body cam, having fun, laughing. We'll do body cam bingo. We'll make sure that's available as well. And if you want to, well, I mean, the bingo boards most time I'll make sure it's in the description for the video, so y'all will be good to go there. And this has been fun. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm a little distracted because I hear my wife and daughter talking really loud in the kitchen, and I'm like, Lord, what are they talking about? They're not yelling at each other. They're just talking loud. Like, why y'all talking so loud? It's so funny, man. They crack me up. So anyway, y'all, thank you so much for tapping in today. I thank each and every one of you. Thank you to the moderators because you all definitely are a godsend. So thank you so much to the mods. Thank you so much to the very kind super chats, as well as the Mike for being our stream sponsor today. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you so much for supporting what we're doing over here. My t-shirt has sold a couple of, I can't believe it. My Brandon Tantrum t-shirt has sold some. Maybe I think I'm gonna put all of those novelty t-shirts on the side somewhere in a little separate section of the store, so people don't think like I'm trying to be like real serious about them. But anyway, I think it's hilarious. Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. Hey, that was a good question, though. That was a very valuable question. A lot of people don't know what the 7 Mountain Mandate is, and it was good to talk about it. So thank you for that. Juju, thank you, friend. I appreciate all of y'all. Thank you so much. Oh, we're doing bingo tomorrow for sure. We have bingo queued up and ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow, like I said, I got 2 videos actually, since I didn't talk about one today, actually now I have 3 videos that I think are just like, they're legal and they're like, wow, you'll be scratching your head tomorrow. So you'll be like, what? What's going on with the world? I got some, there you go. It's going to be called the What's Going On with the World segment. There we go. That's what we're going to call it. Yeah. Why y'all talking? I don't know why my daughter is talking loud. I'm glad y'all can't hear it. Okay, yeah, the microphone's not picking it up. I shouldn't have brought it up. Over on my merch store, I made a point that Brandon Tatum, I feel like, is being disingenuous with his whole argument about why he supports Candace and whatnot like that. And so yesterday in my video, I called out the fact that, Brandon Tatum is basically saying that money supersedes his morals and that morals don't matter as much as money. So like somebody, I don't know who it was, some person put a t-shirt on my site. Money over more. Now, I don't know who did this. I can't confirm nor deny. I don't know who did that, but somebody made a t-shirt that, says money over morals, because that's basically what Brandon Tatum said in putting out the shirt that mocked Erica, Kirk, and the children. He said, hey, Candace put it out, but, I'm sorry. There's no way around that, man. That's immoral to do that. Y'all can't hear him? Okay, good. My microphone is doing this thing because it's not supposed to pick it up, but I can hear them in my ear like, wow, why are they talking so loud? So anyway, I can't confirm nor deny how it got there. But it's on the website. It's just fun. I was making fun of it. It wasn't intended, because I was wondering, I was like, hey, well, would Brandon Tatum put a shirt on his site or produce a shirt? Because his company actually, buys the shirts, makes a screen print, prints it. So I'm like, would you make a screen print of a shirt that mocked your wife or mocked your wife and kids or mocked you or mocked God, mocked Trump? I was like, there's a point, at some point, Brandon Tatum would not be hiding behind the shield of free speech. He would have to say, no, I ain't gonna print that shirt. So I would just wonder, like, what would it be? What would be the floor that you say, okay, yeah, we're not going that low. We're not doing that. And so anyway, it was just fun. I was just making fun of it. That was the whole point of it. and I just thought it was fun. So anyway, there we go. But thank y'all again, everybody. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to find out why my bride and my daughter are talking with their outside voices. Like, why are you talking so loud? And y'all have a fantastic night. Like I said, we'll be doing this again tomorrow, Lord willing. We got body cam bingo. We're just going to have fun. So bring your popcorn, bring your drinks, just have fun and chop it up. So looking forward to doing that real soon. Anyway, my good people, have a fantastic night. Thanks again. I'll see you real soon. Grace and peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Jay Witt Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment, because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.